If you're looking for a supplement with some fascinating research behind it, check out C60 Evo ESS60. In the 2012 Paris Bati study, rats given C60 Evo organic olive oil showed a 90% increase in lifespan, one of the largest ever reported in that type of research, and it was noted that they died without tumors, which was unusual. C60 Evo has been producing carbon-60 in its Houston lab for over 35 years, and it's the only lab whose products have been used in peer-reviewed studies on this miracle molecule. They also produce pure carbon-60 ESS60 elemental safe spears with 60 carbon atoms. Other peer-reviewed research has found C60 Evo to be 125 to 172 times more potent than vitamin C as an antioxidant. And personally, I've been taking C60 Evo ESS60 for about a year and a half. I used to get 1 or 2 bad migraines per year, and since taking it daily, I haven't had even one or even a cold in that time. And if you'd like to try it as well, head over to c60evo.com/Spaceshot76 or use the link in the pinned comment or the description box below and save $15 on your first order.
Two different stints, 15 years for George Soros. And there's a lot of people watching, I'm sure you know, Mr. Secretary, like, what? The secretary worked for George Soros? There's a lot of people, perhaps me included, that have a lot of doubts about this man. So I would ask you, what do we misunderstand about George Soros?
Well, a couple of things. My job for him was working at the investment side, never on the foundation side, and those were kept very separate. And for my first stint, Mr. Soros was focused on bringing down the Iron Curtain and was very helpful in the collapse of the Soviet Union. After I had left the first time, sometime in the early 2000s, I don't know what happened. He got much more focused on domestic policy. He and I rarely talked about politics. We haven't spoken since just after President Trump was elected in 2016.
Haven't spoken in 10 years.
And I would tell you that we had a very robust discussion, and election night 2016 was one of the 3 best periods I've ever had for money making, because I thought President Trump was going to win. And I don't know if you remember, Will, but election night 2016, the market crashed. Market crashed, and that was one of the greatest buying opportunities of all time, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is the most pro-business president probably since Calvin Coolidge. And I later found out that George Soros was the one selling the market. He was crashing the market, lost several $1 billion that night, and myself and several others made a lot of money for our investors the next few weeks.
We have a couple minutes left.
Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. How is it going out there, my fellow world patriots? It is indeed Friday, which is not normal for me here. Friday, August 14th, 2026. And my good friend Dave over at News Treason, happy birthday, brother. He's having his birthday, and we did his call-in show a little bit earlier today from 2 to 4. And I said, you know what? I got a little slot I can pull my buddy in. I've been trying to get him, and we've been trying to work some things out, and he's traveling the world like a nut job and getting all sorts of crazy stuff out there. Mr. Juanito07, what is going on, brother? How have you been? I think the last time we talked it's been too long this time, put it that way. How's it going, man?
Very good. You got me right as I decided to chew on an ice cube.
There
I
we
figure
go.
you'll be a secretary longer, and it's like it's 100 degrees in the shade for me here, so I'm trying to stay cool while we do this. But you know, just one note of clarification. And I love Bastent. Bastent. There's stuff in the personal life that's not my favorite stuff, but he's a great guy. He's done a super job. He has followed the dictates of what the president wants to get done and how he wants to get it done. And I don't think he has missed one beat. In fact, if I was to name all the people around the president who have followed kind of the script of what's needed for America and help the president the most to stay on script, the top 5 people has got to have Basent in it. He has just done a stellar job. And as a person, by the way, I have people that work, do stuff with them every day, go out and have a bite after work hours there in DC. And they, at a personal level, have nothing but just, beautiful words to say, because he is actually a very pleasant person. But the contrary side, I just wanted to add in that conversation. When George Soros was helping us with the matters that took down the Soviet Union, George Soros really was just an agent of British intelligence. He was a functionary, an asset. They created George Soros with certain things they did in taking down the pound. And then that money was a black bag project for them that has gone other places, including the monies were not returned back into the U.S. Treasury that were supposed to come back into the U.S. Treasury at the end of the project. And I don't even give the name there, but, I've got the paperwork. I didn't get rid of everything. I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about here, and it pisses me the hell off. And there's someday we'll have the story and write the story, but Soros, all of his wonkiness, all the other stuff, when you think of mischief going on in the intelligence agencies over here in the States, he is a counterpoint part of that for the other team, which really runs out of the City of London and the Global East and British intelligence. And I think that's going to eventually be very, very commonly understood. It's not right now, but this is coming. We're more and more disclosures every day you watch.
Oh, dude, we're getting them like left and right like crazy, and so much fraud too. And dude, usually I will wait because and say thank you for most of the say Rumble rants and people that send in, but thank you for the raid there, Mr. Bear at the parade, Scotty. Always appreciate it, brother. And this is a message for you. So somebody sent me a $50 Rumble rant, and they said, "Tell Juan I apologize to the guy he sent to my house. Touchy and sensitive topic for me he started out with." But I don't know what that is. You know what that is?
I don't know. So I don't know that I sent anybody to anybody's house. I hope it was legit. But gosh, but if she's going to send you $50, more power to you. I will say this. What you do is a labor of love, and the money that folks send over so that you can do this is so important. And because you can't really do much with the advertisers, it doesn't cover all the stuff. So I think it's worth a big shout out to all those people that kind of throw in, and it gives me a place where I can talk with the public, the audience. I don't run my own show. I wouldn't be able to do it consistently and manage all the other stuff that I have going. So having other hosts available to talk with and share some of the things, and plus it helps me to go with a broader audience. So the fact that you have people that support you is a big deal, and big shout out to all those folks.
Yeah, I do appreciate them. And while I have it really quickly, Major D2 Firing It Up had gifted out 5 subscriptions to the channel. So I appreciate that, brother. And then Bone Tip dropped in a $5 Rumble rant and says, the first thing I thought of when seeing that, clip was, quote, he's stepping on Juan's toes. That's hilarious.
Well, yeah, I guess once in a while I get a little bit, I don't know if it's territorial or what. The world really doesn't know as much as I would like him to know about that period there, Reagan, and the things that were done, the people. There's so many good guys, so many bad guys. They're all in there. It's going to take a while. It might be a generation before you can pull all the pieces together and make it make sense in the bigger picture. But Reagan, he came into office. His primary objective was to end the Cold War. And you can look at all the other stuff, Reagan. It did end the Cold War. The kill shot didn't come until Bush won, but everything was in place. And even Bush 1 couldn't stop what was going on really in ending it. And then the problem is that much of the issues across the world, even today, have to do with the shutdown not being done correctly or as was originally agreed to and planned. And that money going out and getting loose across the world, we're still fighting some of that. But bought the world, 50 years of peace, of
Huge.
40 years of peace, depending on how much longer it lasts. But it gave us a break for a while, but we're right back where we started right now, maybe even getting worse. So the acceleration at this point in time is excruciatingly serious. And a lot of things that we thought were dead and gone are right here, right now, and we're having to deal with them. There's no good reason except that you have globalists and, greedy people who want to control the whole world that got away with a lot of mischief. So fight's on.
Hell yeah. Well, the fight is on too, and this is funny because I sent this to one of my otherwise a good guy, other than he's completely Democrat, Trump derangement. So I've been trying to work on him for a while, and I'm like, how are you not seeing like some of these things? And some people are just so far gone, Juan, that it's just like, I really believe some of them, like, the team told us essentially that there's 4 to 6% of the world that's so, cooked as far as how badly they've been browbeaten with all this stuff. And to a certain extent, I almost feel bad for some of them. And this is not like this guy's not an idiot, right? He's, he can hold an intelligent conversation with you, but I try to go back and show him the error of his ways because, most things I get from him are TikTok reports and stuff like that. And I send him back, Inspector General's reports and things along those lines. But a lot of these people just, it seems like it's taking some people a little longer. And the funny part was, I said, well, one thing you can't tell me is you can't tell me that we've ever seen the amount of fraud being essentially espoused or put out into the public lately, right? And he's like, what are you talking about, fraud? And I'm like, what am I talking about, fraud? Are you kidding me? I said, billion here, billion there. I said, I'm getting so much fraud, I don't know what to do with it. I mean, it's I can't even keep track of it, Juan, because it's so much that like they'll come on one day and say, oh, we just found 8.9 billion here, and then the next day it's like 200 million here, and I'm like, this is just, I've never seen anything like it. But I think, and to the and how it relates also to, like, say, the quote, the Muslim invasion. You know as well as I do, a lot of these folks have been here for quite a long time, but we're now highlighting the fact of what they're doing, and we're putting a spotlight on them, and also the election stuff, and also the fraud. So this is a time right now for like heavy exposure of all the things that these people are doing. But unfortunately, some people are just a little slower than others, and they need to be served on a platter.
We've been told that there's 25 million, 30 million people here illegally. Then it kind of ramped up to 50 million. And then you had some of the folks here talking here a month or so ago from inside the administration, saying that the true number that they're working on internally right now is there's 107 million people here in the country illegally. And, when you have a population of 350 plus million, that's a pretty big percentage. And, in that vein, and I want to tell you something about the Supreme Court, remind me in a moment here, but in that same vein, the latest number that I got here about 2.5 weeks ago on the number of sealed but unserved indictments within the federal court system. These are official numbers. They're not some internet, bullshit. You go through the various regional courts, because you have 50 states and then the 6 territories. You add all up. There's all different types of cases that are open, and there's a special category for pedophile and that sort of thing. But unserved sealed indictments, they'd be like mafioso or ongoing investigation. They don't want everybody to know about it, but they've got the sealed indictment ready to serve. That total number now is just a couple thousand. It's like 497,000 sealed indictments, just shy of 500,000. That is unheard of in the U.S. court system. This is a figure that's many times higher than has ever existed. You go back 10 years or something. And so the reason that's important, what are most of those cases? And by the way, even though it's at about 500,000, each one of those indictments can carry from 1 to 99 named persons or entities. So you could have people on more than one indictment, separate indictments, different parts of the country. But it's not going to be a huge number necessarily. You could have a number of people on each individual indictment. In fact, it wouldn't be unusual to have 8, 10, 15, even 20 people on an indictment or more. And so if you just said, let's just use the working number. Let's say there was 10 people on each indictment. Well, that'd be 5 million people named. Maybe that's too high. Maybe it's only, 5 people per indictment. Well, that's 250,000. That's 2,500,000. Well, what are most of those? Those are probably a vast majority illegals here in the country illegally, and they may have been involved in some type of felonious activity, voting, identity theft, all sorts of things that could be in there. Whatever it is, and because they're sealed, we don't know the precision exactly what they're all about. But they haven't been served. They're still building up. Those are all live. They can be served, and you would have to say that somebody's waiting, getting ready to serve them, and they're waiting for the right moment. So I think that moment may be just ahead. But anyway, so I don't think that, we're too far off. We need to be paying attention. This immigration thing is going to light up shortly.
Oh, yeah. And, I popped this one on the screen here. Unsealed, the key word here. I reposted this the other day from Technofog talking about the SPLC woman. I put, key word here is unsealed, right? And we're unsealing unsealing these things here. Juan, I got just so you know, I got you off the other screen, so you don't have to have your hand there if you don't want to.
All right, good.
Yeah, you're good, and I can minimize everything there, so it's only showing you like a waveform. But I got an interesting one. My co-host Hulkinator found. I wanted to show you this one, and maybe this could be some weird coincidences. But all three of these posts, if it comes up like it should, let's see. Yep, all of these came from President Trump in 2018, and some of you folks, I guess we're having an outage on Pilled, or for whatever reason, my Rumble's not connecting to Pilled, so I think some of the folks are coming over here from over to Rumble and YouTube, so trying to work this out in the background. But Juan, these ones right here are all President Trump tweets from 2018, May 2nd, May 30th, August 15th. And every one of them is a quote from Joe DeGeneva talking about Article 2 and Jeff Sessions recusing himself, and then Hillary Clinton also getting a pass from the FBI. So I thought that was pretty cute coincidence that he was posting all these things. And wait, who's running that thing down there in Florida? Joey D. I mean, dude, how would you want? He would be like the last guy I would want to see sitting across from me as a prosecutor.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
Oh my gosh! Well, and by the way, just so people know, one of the cases he's dealing with is the Brennan case. There was a different prosecutor on it. It was going a little wonky. There were some questions about her history, viability, moving forward, the method she was applying to the investigation in the case. So she gets pulled off the case. She had an indictment that a grand jury had already handed down on Brennan. They decided not to serve it, let it go, and which we saw back. I did the Whitewater stuff, and we had indictments on Hillary several times. And then the prosecutor, Starr, decided that he wasn't going to serve them. They were weak. He wouldn't win, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, are you kidding me? And of course, I have an opinion on that. When you see where where Starr ended up and all the things that happened, well, maybe the fix was in from the beginning. But anyway, here, this prosecutor, she was moved to something else. Nobody fired her. Her strategy was weak. So then you get DeGenova in there. Well, when he came in mid-June, I take it back. It was about the 1st of June, and he, right off the bat, people were like, he's going to go do this, that. No, just to come up to speed on all the paperwork in the case, on the Brennan case. They were saying it was going to take him 30 to 45 days just to review the case, to be adequately prepared, to be ready to go in and start going to grand jury. So that put him into July sometime. And, then you kind of you get your sea legs, get the rest of your team on base, because they really had to start over is really the way it was. Too much at stake. Probably sometime later here in August, I think they'll have the first indictments back from Brennan. They already had one. They just have to do it. And this prosecutor, the thing about a prosecutor is he has to be able to own what he does. He doesn't want to try to pick up where the other prosecutor was if there's any question of a strategy or objectives or whatever, because whatever he does, his reputation and even legal liability is on the line. He's not going to do it on somebody else's thing. He's not going to take that chance, especially somebody like DeGenova. So he's soup to nuts, started over, even the people around him, vetting and verifying every last piece of critical paperwork, because he's coming at it from a slightly different direction than was going at it previously. And there's new paperwork that has since been added to that. I expect he'll have some indictments passed down shortly in the next, probably 2 to 3 weeks. Whether they serve him instantly or not is another matter. And he may wait to get other matters before the grand jury also, before he, decides to spring. But everybody, including Brennan, all the buddies, the whole schmear, they all know it's coming. I believe personally, and it's just there's nothing to base it on. Grand jury secret. Nobody's leaking anything. I'm just going by my gut on this. I think what they're going to do is go ahead and do the initial prosecutorial stuff within the Justice Department on Brennan. Brennan ultimately is going to end up down in Gitmo. Brennan's ultimately going to be in there for treasonous, traitorous shit. But to start the ball rolling, because you have a public that, is just ready, arrest somebody finally. Okay. There's good reasons why they haven't, but the ones that people really want to see. But I think they're going to ease us into it with an arrest there. And they may do Comey at the same time, somewhere close to it or something. That'll just get people, get the ball rolling, get them lathered up. But
wet the whistle.
Yeah, wet the whistle. The main events don't come until after the president pauses this midterm election. And then the shit starts to fly, and it flies heavy and fast in that environment. The first ones up are Russia stuff. And all the stuff to interfere with President Trump's first term, and even trying to stop him from getting elected in 2016. So Brennan's right in the middle of that whole mess. And, part of the normal question would be, well, will he turn? Will he help with some of the other prosecutions? Well, the first impression everybody has is there's no way. But, Brennan is, he's his own zip code. If Brennan thinks he's going to go down, and he is, and hard, and he is, he may make some deals that make sure that others go down with him. He's always, he'd love to find a place he could go where they couldn't reach him. We couldn't reach him. It doesn't exist. So because of the circumstances, the nature of it, he can't breathe. We don't hear, every hoarse note in his throat. So,
I think it's common, dude. And dude, there's, especially even if me and you had talked a couple of days ago, there's still so much to talk about. It's like, I don't even know what direction to go in next, but I did, I did pop this on the screen, and I do have something, and I won't let us forget to revisit the Supreme Court, because in addition to whatever it is you have to talk about, I have another story for a ruling that they did yesterday. But here we have, and the way, if you look at the link on this quick, it's like, oh, Janine Pirro, special grand jury reflecting pool. So it kind of looks like she did this, but it's nothing to do with that, because the title, Janine Pirro calls a secretive grand jury an unusual move after the reflecting pool debacle. So essentially she's called a special grand jury that, I guess from what I read, other grand juries are a little bit less, and this can be up to 36 months, and then it can be extended thereafter. But apparently they're saying that because she keeps losing Trump priority cases in D.C., they found a workaround through her office. So obviously the bad guys are always going to keep pushing back, and we're always going to have that, and they're never going to they're never just going to concede. We know that for sure. But they don't even actually list out in this thing what she's doing it for. And so they say right here, like, as you see, such a secretive special grand jury could be used to draft damaging reports about Trump's critics, because that's another thing about this special grand jury, Juan, is that when they're done, this special grand jury has the ability to write reports and put out reports as well. And you know how, like, in previous history, any regular grand jury, it's like, fighting tooth and nail to get that information. Oh, we got to get it declassified, this, that, and the other. But this stuff they can actually write a report on. So I don't know if you had any comments on Miss Janine Pirro, but I would contend that she's very much like like the female version of Joe DeGenova, like a little pit bull.
Well, I had pleasure of having breakfast at the Trump in D.C. with Janine and her husband several years back, and she is just a wonderful person, great dresser, by the way, and she, very stylish. I mean, she always has a certain elevated presentation, which I want to call it out for a second. You deal with so many people, even in a DC environment, and many of them you feel like they're overdoing it. It's too Hollywood. It's too not real. And especially amongst the aides and like that, I mean, everyone a freaking, Olympic beauty star. And it's difficult because the reality is you want to get work done. You're actually on serious stuff, and it's a fashion show. The other extreme is you run into a crowd that is almost slovenly. It's one big, today I'm relaxed. It's 100 degrees out. Don't have my boots on. Got shorts on, okay? But it's not an unkempt kind of a thing. I got to tell you, I've run into so many situations where I had meetings with people in pretty powerful positions in DC, and you come away from it thinking, how in the world can this person operate in this zone, this realm, and be, present like this? And so you do see it kind of all the way around. It's one thing, if you don't have those responsibilities, why, overdo it? But anyway, she's able to hit the numbers, even with her television and stuff and like that. A very clean, elevated look and presentation, her demeanor. It's more than just the dress. It's somebody that can articulate things well, have a serious conversation, can lift on the gas, push the brake, slow down on stuff and speed up. You'll hear it in her conversation. She'll be very slow, listen, ask questions. She'll speed it up at a certain point. Well, wait a second, hold on. And she can change speeds. A lot of the people you're dealing with, it's like they're on drugs. Even especially with the attorneys and like that, they get so paced in everything they do that firefighters just came in. They've been fighting fire here in the region, and they're taking a break. They've been up for 35 hours fighting fires, and they're all coming in dead dog beat, to get a rest right now. So, you put any fires out? Good. Have a drink on me, guys.
There's so many fires around the country too. It's getting out of control. Gosh. And
by the way,
someone designed.
Yeah, I was just going to say we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, just to finish up, I really like Judge Janine, and she's got an interesting place she has to work there in DC. It's all over the map. She's a classy person. It's a little bit painful to me because this reflecting pool thing really does bother me, that somebody can get away with that, and that's not more of a priority. It was done to damage our presentation appearance on our 250th anniversary, and just painful. So I hope they're able to do more with that, and I agree with President Trump on that. But the only thing I would say in Judge Janine's defense is most everything I've seen over the years, I thought she just did something fantastic. She's been a fan of Trump and very supportive. So I don't really know how to gauge exactly what's there. I would hope that there's some alignment gets sorted out moving forward. So.
Yeah, and she's in a tough area. I mean, trying to get anything prosecuted in D.C., I'm sure, is quite the challenge as it is, So, I mean,
well, and I guess that in her defense, look at the environment she's in with the judges and everything else. I mean, think of all the J6 stuff and how the judges were on that. So you've got to consider the environment. And, she, may have had to remind the president a couple of things of what she's actually working with there to try and keep the ball moving forward. You can be as aggressive as you want. Well, let me switch before we go to fires. Let me switch to Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I just got notice here a few minutes ago before we came on the air. One of the people that's been doing work with my coalition, and I had him speak at the Fraud Fighters Conference in Vegas here a few weeks ago, and then also at my bond conference back in February, which was private, wasn't open to the public. I had about 100 people I brought in. And Mitch Wexler's on the bond stuff down in Texas. He was a real estate developer, and these bonds, school bonds, other things, were, piling up bills on his properties and like that. And they were saying they were worth way more than they were, so they could charge more property tax on them. So he went to war, and he has 3 cases. One that's been heard, 2 that haven't, before the Texas Supreme Court. And you just have to picture, to get to the Supreme Court in Texas, you had to go through all the lower courts. He's been at this for several years. He's done amazing, stunning work. In fact, he'd be a great guest for you, and I'd be glad to put him on with you. But he has a case where the Supreme Court in Texas gave down a decision that was so unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court had heard a case last year and handed down a decision that's near one that is the Texas
Ruh-roh. Losing you on. Uh-oh. And I think he's just sitting in a seat. I don't think he's moving at all. Uh-oh. Text him.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, there you go. Yep, starting to get you back a little bit. You went off the deep end. You started going a little glitchy there for a second, so let's make sure we got you back solid there, brother.
Any drama.
Here we go. Let's give that a second. Maybe the audio being on was taking some of the signal, perhaps. Well, while that's resetting really quick, let me thank PJW for becoming a monthly supporter and then also gifting out 5 subscriptions. So thank you there, PJ. And then Mr. MacGyver, a $2 super chat, always forget, bids us a good evening, Patriots. So thank you for that there. Mr. MacGyver and Miss PJW. Let's see, Mr. Juanito. You on a good Wi-Fi yet?
Well, I actually shut the Wi-Fi off and just went to the phone side to see if that might solve it, because there's no reason for it to have dropped off unless there's some local thing here. So I apologize.
Oh, fine, perfect.
But the deal is, this case that went to the Texas Supreme Court, they gave down a decision that was so un-American, so unconstitutional, and where the Supreme Court had just decided something similar that's like point by point exactly the same. So literally, Mitch just got word today that his case has been docketed, so it'll go to conference. And so it doesn't mean that it's going to be heard. They then have to decide at conference whether they're going to hear it. But the case is so simple. The entire case is like 4 lines. And it basically says, is the previous Supreme Court ruling such and so apply to this case or not? And when you look at it, they're just a mirror image of each other. So of course it applies. And if so, how can Texas Supreme Court do what they're doing? And by the way, after this case, he has two more that the Texas Supreme Court hasn't listened to for other years. What the core of the case is they're doing mischief within the bonds and the way that they're escalating home property values and things like that without any reference point. Just because they need more money, the county says, "Well, your house now was worth 500,000, now it's worth 600,000." Well, does that show anywhere in the market? Oh, we just said it's worth 600,000. Well, does that show anywhere? Have more jobs come into the area? Has income gone up? Have home sales matched that? No, just everybody's property's worth more right now, and then they take more tax revenue because they got to meet their interest payments on their school bonds. And in looking at the school bonds all around the country, at this point, and David Kinney out there in California tell you the same thing. He'd be a good guest too. There isn't a school bond in the country right now that appears to be being levied legally. And Trump, when I did the bond conference back in February, and I brought in all the specialists, and we looked at this. After we concluded with what we had to say, about 10 days later, President Trump came out publicly and made a wild statement. In my conference, the conclusion is that the only solution to the crisis that's about to hit America related to bonds and the bond market is to segregate the school bonds from all the other bonds, and then which goes to property taxes. And then the federal government's going to have to come in and manage that, in many cases through bankruptcy and like that, so that the school bond frauds don't take down the entire bond market. And to give you an idea of scale and crisis, depending on who you talk to, on the low side, this is 10 times worse than the crash 2007 and 8, real estate crash. That was only just less than $1 trillion, about $880 billion. This one, on the low side, just with data that is readily established and provable, is like $6.1 trillion. In reality, if you go and extrapolate through and look at everything else that's involved, the real number is somewhere around 17 trillion. That is essentially going to wash out and be collapsed because it's all frauded through there in so many ways. It's just hard to even start in this kind of a conversation to do a thorough job. So Trump made this wonky statement. He said, we're going to have to nationalize the bond debt, and we're going to have to eliminate property taxes. What? Yeah, because the property taxes, they're going to destroy the real estate market. Property taxes are going to undermine the whole economy because they're fraudulently issuing them. Then once they take it on as a federal thing, then they've got to figure out what's legitimate and what isn't, and who's paying. The reality is the firms that are putting these bonds together, putting them out in the market, the numbers they're using are a racket. And the money's already gone in all the right guys' pockets. All it is debt now to the property owners. You're going to have school districts around the country going bankrupt. You got a couple in Texas already have. You got several in California that are on the brink. And part of the issue, they keep putting people into positions as administrators within the school boards who are not qualified. You have to have a teaching credential. You have to have a administrative credential for, business management type thing. And very few of them do. And they do this racket where they get, they get appointed, but then they get a couple of years to get their degree. And then they get, little degree groups that are kind of their own racket. They get you the degree, and these guys go out and they float these bonds, not really understanding what they're looking at or what the implications are. California is just rife with it, and so you've had school district superintendents who turn out not to have the degrees. You had it in Ohio. And it turned out the guy wasn't even a U.S. citizen.
Damn.
And he's running the school board, okay? And a school superintendent, largest school district in Ohio. And then, turns out he's got gun issues and, domestic issues and all sorts of things. And yet he's, running these bonds out there. Why did he get in there? Why did the school board put him in there? Because he would go along with what they wanted.
Yeah.
So they could get all the facilities, and he wasn't gonna, he wasn't gonna look very deep. He just do what he was told. That's the same thing in other places. Got one out in California where he listed all these credentials, including Air Force degrees and things like that. Turns out he doesn't have any of the degrees. And here he is running one of the largest school districts in California. We got a couple of those going right now. So pay attention there, because those bonds that were floated by people who didn't have the right credentials were fraudulently floated. And the people involved, the law firms, the bond issuing firms that put these on the public market, et cetera, they all had a responsibility to do their due diligence, and they didn't. So that's going to be a big deal. But the Supreme Court hearing this Mitch Wexler case, if that happens, and it's a pretty straightforward case. Again, the guy that sees lots and lots and lots of these cases, it says the binding. You have to actually present your case as like a booklet. There's very specific things about how you prepare that booklet before it can go to the Supreme Court. And so the guy that was doing this binding and read this through, who's seen, thousands of these things over the years, that this was one of the most egregious cases he's ever read. And it's so straightforward. It's so simple. It's so obvious. He said, I'm going to personally walk this over and file it with the court clerk there at the Supreme Court to make sure it's handled exactly correctly. This is such a serious case. Well, again, everything to do with the bonds, you can talk about all the other stuff. Let's get an indictment of Brennan. Let's go arrest Brennan. Let's go get Gitmo going. Let's, we got to stop a crooked election. What takes everybody's eyes off of all of that? If you have a financial crisis. And that's what's there with the bond crisis. Jamie Dimon, I had an inquiry into him here a couple of years back, and there's a lot of story behind that. But he came out publicly about a year and a half ago, I think as a direct result of the questions, and said, yeah, there is going to be a crisis. There's going to be some kind of a collapse within the bond markets. Can be pretty serious. I don't know if it's going to be in 6 months or 5 years. Okay, well, that was a year and a half ago. Clock's ticking. What takes the world's eyes off of everything else that's going on in the politics and arrests and everything else? Monetary crisis. And the bonds could be the leader to that, into a real estate crisis, everything else. So how would Trump deal with that if he federalizes it somehow? Well, he's going to go out and clip a bunch of people for money that they essentially stole from the American taxpayers. Not going to give it out to you in a check. You're not getting $100,000 check tomorrow. What he will do is create essentially a sovereign wealth fund for the country. And then they'll categorize people in order to repay them or pay debts that are debts in the public that need to be done. And what they'll do, just like any good bankruptcy judge, they'll decide what's valid and what's invalid. There's going to have to be some kind of an intervention in the bond market. It's going to be serious, going to be massive, and you're going to have to break it apart into a couple of pieces so one part doesn't take everything else down.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of what you're talking about being reported too. That the that it's ripe for one of these issues. Geez, who was the other guy? There was another financial guy who's been saying the same thing for a while, and he's very concerned about this. And I've been saying this for a while too, Juan. I'm like, could you imagine, blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption? The amount of money that they could have recuperated through all of this, and the amount of money of anybody that was arrested for whatever serious human rights abuse or corruption. I mean, 2,000 pedos arrested within the last few months here, and how many over the last many years. But worldwide, how much money could be recouped? And I could only imagine how big some of these people their black budgets, say if they were, I don't know that they were for sure or not, wink, wink, but, were some of these people, moving drugs, all the way back through all these different wars throughout the many years, and, covert ops that they're moving this, that, and the other. And I could just imagine the balloon of an account that some of these people have or had at one point. But this would be really good to see, to see some change, because as we know, we keep getting, President Trump keeps talking about the financial thing, and I keep getting it from my friends. It's like, oh, like you said, what are people most concerned about, right? It's like, oh, gasoline. Well, why is gasoline so expensive? Well, it's cheaper per barrel than it was under Biden, right? So everybody sees what they're doing here, and that's the main issue. But people have hypothesized.
Well, come back to that oil thing and gas in a minute. Because I got something to say there, because that's actually very important. In fact, we're going to be covering that at the Storm Summit here in September, first week of September or second week of September.
Nice.
But one thing I want to just help people to understand: we won't be. It's not just like pedophiles and all that. The president, what you're probably referencing in one of the executive orders, 138488, I believe, the recovery of monies from people involved in human trafficking. Human trafficking is not the same or necessarily to be confused with, say, prostituting people, adult or children. Human trafficking includes if you're slaving them through taxation. So if you're involved in some type of false taxation on the public and benefiting from that, where they're essentially turned into slave labor, the definition of federal income tax, let alone all the state stuff. If you're benefiting from that, those profits can be seized anywhere in the world, is the way that Trump's put it. So we're going to go out and clip money in banking systems all over the world. In fact, part of the rub for the Federal Reserve is this: Trump is going to go to Treasury notes and leave Federal Reserve notes. I've said this for a very long time, even before he announced he was running back in 2015. I told audiences that Trump's role, if he decided to run for president, would be to manage, supervise the bankruptcy of America, and canceling out our obligations or supposed obligations to the Federal Reserve and the IRS, which, by the way, the IRS is a Puerto Rican corporation. Offices right down the street from the Federal Reserve. And when you pay your IRS taxes, not going into the U.S. Treasury, So it's going to pay the interest on the debt that we supposedly owe to the fucking Brits, by the way. And and courts have found this. This isn't just internet bullshit. Courts have found that the IRS is a Puerto Rican corporation. U.S. courts. Okay. So Trump is going to go out and he's going to confiscate a lot of this money that's gone into foreign operations wherever he can find it. It's a challenge between the international reserve system and the U.S. Treasury. That's what's shaping up. That's why Besant is such a critical key player. He knows some of the other players. He knows how the game's been played. He's seen it at a lot of levels. And again, I think Besant has done, not for Trump, for the American people, some of the greatest work of anybody in the country in a very, very, very long time. He stayed right on course. So we're being very well served by Besant. He travels with the president almost everywhere the president goes, Besant goes. When he was in Turkey and they had the aircraft issue, Besant was there. He was on the plane.
he was the bait. I mean, and some people, of course, folks on the other side will always go, oh, Trump's just hastily jumping us back into this forever war or whatever. But if you take a look around, they've actually been doing things. So I'll just read this instead of playing. It says, quote, "Watch this space. We are going to apply measures like have never seen in the history of an economic isolation on a country. We've been going after their bank accounts, crypto wallets, assets around the world, cutting off payments in both the leadership and regime and the government itself. As a result, one of the largest banks, or the largest bank in Iran, collapsed. Central bank had to print money, created huge inflation. People say, well, Cuba lasted a long time. Venezuela lasted a long time. Venezuela immediately crumbled when we put the blockade on, so it will be a combination of economic isolation like the world has never seen before and the continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz that will keep anything from going in or out of the Iranian port." And so essentially he said, I think a few weeks ago, in a few years people will say, what was that Strait of Hormuz? And I think that's obviously he's kind of chirping it. I'm sure they'll be using it still, but I think what they're, going at is they're going to have alternatives to having to go through there, right? Like pipelines and going through maybe Alaska and whatnot. And Iraq was brought up last week as well.
Yeah, actually what happened, a lot of people most of the public isn't aware of this. We reduced the amount of oil needing to go through the Strait of Hormuz radically. We maintenanced and upgraded pipelines out of the region to other locations so that the oil doesn't have to go by ship from right there, and reduced the pressure radically. And part of the reason that Trump doesn't, it's kind of a, tongue-in-cheek kind of a thing. The administration doesn't actually want Iran to get sorted out that fast on the oil stuff, because the oil was going to China and people that China controlled. They were getting it at way below market rates, which allowed China to function and be the creeps that they were, just like they were in Venezuela. You have to pay $5 a gallon at the gas station. They'd be paying 35 cents. If you wanted to get real about it. So how is it China's so prosperous and able to compete with us? Well, they were, running a criminal enterprise. And then the Brits, they're in on it. They run China. So how are the Brits doing this? Because they had a troll fee. Lloyd's of London will have to insure your shipment. They're getting 3 and 4% for every shipment that went through there as a troll tax. Oh, no, it's insurance. No, it isn't. It's the troll tax because you're running the guys involved here. You don't pay the troll tax, you might have a problem with your vessel. Even some of the stuff going on with the Somali pirates. Now we're finding out behind the scenes. I don't know if we've maybe I better not go there for the moment, but there's a wild connection to the Brits and the banks up there. So at the end of the day, we've been being conned by our supposed good buddies and friends. And Iran, a lot of the mischief going on there wasn't even the Iranians behind it. Okay, so what Trump wants is he wants to, who's actually running this operation. Part of the deal is that we haven't gotten to the real people that can make the decision in Iran yet. Got a bunch of peripheral ones. What Trump's waiting for is for one of the groups with the right pull and authority, including all the way back to the city of London, to say, okay, stop. We'll work a deal with you on one issue, nuclear. Why? Because they're threatening the whole world with nuclear. It's not just Israel. And by the way, Trump, he says something really wonky. And so everybody has to kind of slow down, because you got to remember, Trump's doing a lot of stuff right in plain sight, but yet he veils it so that unless you're really kind of listening, he's really talking to other world leaders and intelligence agencies. And the general public misses the nuances. Trump, when he talks about Iran and nuclear, he'll say whatever he's going to say, and then he'll say something like, "Well, and we want our nuclear dust back." Yeah, we want our nuclear dust back. Who's going to give us our nuclear dust back? What's he talking about? Nuclear dust? Well, that's code for yellow cake. That's code for the precursors that are needed to concentrate in order to have weapons grade uranium. Well, why would he say we want it back? That implies we had it at one time. Yeah, where do you think the stuff from Uranium 1 went? Didn't just go to Russia. Russia resold it. Okay, that's where Iran got this stuff, and we want it back. We don't want them to have the makings for nuclear weapons. Think of some of all fears. What was the big line in there? When we traced where the nuclear material came from for the bomb, yeah, it came from Savannah, Georgia. What? Yeah, it was our material. Went to somebody else, and came back to us. It's ours. Yeah, well, that's what the stuff is from Uranium 1. The Iranians are using to make their bomb-grade material from. So Trump wants it back. And until they get somebody that's in the power that has control of the nuclear that wants to do a deal, we're not dealing with the real runners of Iran. Anybody else that comes in wants to represent the nation of Iran, but doesn't have control enough of the nuclear facilities to be able to work the deal, they're not the real one. So,
Yeah.
And if they are in the position to control those facilities but don't want to do a deal, then we don't want them around. Let's boom, freaking send them to Allah.
Dude,
get it over with.
I got a good one for you, and it's been so long since we talked, so I have to do this, right? And now, but before I get to the fun part, I'm just gonna lay this one out. This is October 29th of 2017. It says, "Open your eyes." It finally came out that Rod, talking about Rod Rosenstein and Bob.
Rosenstein, yeah.
And Bob, which would be Mueller. Rod and Bob were key players in the uranium scandal. Do you think POTUS would be tweeting about it, about removal given clear conflict? And so we're talking about, this, that, and the other. So obviously that was part of the team drops. But me and you have not talked in a while, and this had transpired in...
Well, let me just say this.
Sure.
Mueller, he's talking in a higher court now. May already have been heard off planet, but he's got some answering to do about Cambodia and protecting the pedophile operation out of Cambodia going over to MIT. And by the way, he should not get a pass. Schwartz, the kid that developed the Reddit system, didn't commit suicide. And somewhere in here, there has to be justice for him because he was trying to expose that operation when they went and charged him with this whole Cambridge thing where he was supposedly stealing stuff out of the library. And he was the one that went over right after he got the FBI thing to, try to get that under control. As for Rosenstein, he was in charge of dirty tricks, black bag operations, honeypotting, blackmail. According to the person that came out on July 10th, 2017, a year after Seth Rich was killed there in Washington, D.C., and the contractor was verified to be who he said he was, working where he said he was working, inside the Justice Department. And he was at a government facility. He did a off-site interview with his attorney present at a hotel in Maryland. And he pointed the bony finger at Rosenstein as being the person behind that. And he was a contractor working in those operations. He's the one that said during that interview that other contractors, the morning after Seth Rich was found dead, and there might be some drama there too. Be surprised who might come back. That these other contractors were laughing about the way Seth Rich died, pleading for his life. So that's out there. There's the guy that says it. I think there might be any truth to that. Let's see what happens next.
Oh gosh, I can't wait to see. Yeah, and apparently that's Rod Rosenstein. I call him Rod Nosenstein because he was always sniffling like crazy. But in the course of our little show hiatus, we had this happen. Now, when I saw this at first, I was like, oh my God, and then I was like, oh wait, that's so. I can't believe they did this to us. So they came out in the White House. This was what, July? I don't even know when it was. June 22nd. So the White House actually comes out and says the White House will be Q posting today. And I was like, oh, this is great. Been licking my chops waiting for all this. And then it says, wah. By Q, we mean quantum. And then it says, stay tuned. And then, a couple hours later, we get this one. And I'm like, no freaking way. So what they did is they used the aggregator site, qag.news. I heard it was down a little while ago earlier today. So let's see if it's back up. Ag. And so look, I got the screen a little bit big here. We're at 500%. Let's bring that down to normal size. But look at the similarities in the posting style on this one. So I just got to get your thoughts all together on that.
Let me go a parallel course with you for a second. Remember, they like to play a little game right there in plain sight. And now you see it, now you don't. Remember, because I've been telling you that the president never gave up nuclear authority. So he's been operating as commander-in-chief in a continuity in government operation that, China stole the 2020 election, and there's been all sorts of stuff going on since then. He didn't give up nuclear codes and all this other stuff. But remind everybody, remember what happened at Strategic Air Command. They have a website. Every intelligence agency, every government in the world watches it. It's right there for the public. But on that website that's for the public, they post things like, if there's going to be a bunch of trucks going into the facility at the base and they got to go through the neighborhood, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. We're not stocking up for, World War IV. If the sirens go off, we're going to test them at such and so hour. It's not the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. So it's just really for the convenience of people in the neighborhood, answer questions. People want to know what's going on. So on this comment section, for letting people know, on this particular day, out of the blue, everybody watches it because they want to know what's going on, even other governments, comes a series of letters and symbols and numbers, and it's just random. And then it stops. About a half hour later, while people are watching, governments have to stop and look, what in the world was that? Did somebody accidentally transmit a nuclear code on the open site? What's going on? Message comes through. Ignore the last posting. One of our personnel took a communications device home, set it on a counter, and a small child picked up the device and punched in random letters and numbers. Disregard. It was a mistake.
Whoops.
Then people who don't want to, take that face value, it just didn't seem plausible for a bunch of reasons. How long is that guy's job going to last to take a communications device home? It's supposed to be fairly secure. So some of the people out there, Anons, went right onto the open web, there's decoding sites where you punch in what looks like a code and they try to decode it, and they give you the most likely answers for a coded message. They use AIs and try to crack the code. So they looked at a couple of the sites, but the biggest site out there that does the decoding, which the government's running in the background, gives 20 different possible meanings for what the message is in this hidden code that's put out there. First code, Q, vindicated.
Really?
And remember, all of the personnel there that deal with anything to do with weapons grade nuclear of any type, their Department of Energy, they have to have a Department of Energy Q clearance. So you can have a clearance for working with nuclear materials, but if it's weapons grade, you have to have a Q clearance. And if you're loading bombs on a bomber, you have to have a Q clearance. If you're working inside the facility at Cheyenne Mountain, you have to have a Q clearance. So here it is, Q vindicated. Well, what's the context?
That's
okay.
crazy.
There's all sorts of stuff, and so Q keeps coming up at the wildest places, but with plausible denial. And by the way, when you look what the White House posted in there, there was more than one thing having to do with the Q stuff in it, and so they're playing around a little bit. Why? Because Trump's in that whole operation right at the core. The other one that most people didn't even catch. So Dan Scavino posted a picture of him in a chair at
Mar-a-Lago?
No.
Bedminster?
No. Can't believe I can't think of it there. The park that is next to FBI and all that. Anyway, so there's, it'll come to me in a second. Camp David. And
Gotcha.
so he's at Camp David, and they have kind of an outside area where there's like a little barbecue thing. You can have a heater, whatever. It's not a barbecue, but you can sit around the fireplace outside. And so he's sitting in a chair, and there's 9 more chairs after him. Well, remember, the person that tongue-in-cheek is the only person that posts anything other than the president that's related to the Q stuff directly is Scavino. You see the picture there and there for Marine One. It's the president walking away from Marine One. Well, who's the only other guy left in the helicopter? Scavino. Scavino's there on all this stuff over and over. So Scavino, in amongst other 9 chairs, what's the Q message that applies? Less than 10 or less than 10 people know exactly what the plan is with the Q operation, what the end game is. Less than 10. Well, Scavino's in that camp.
Definitely.
at Camp David.
That camp at Camp David. And I'm actually looking for it right now. Another very interesting one, Hulk found yesterday. You notice how President Trump has been posting, I could probably go to True Social right now and just look up, any one of his posts, right? And a lot of the posts where he's ending with is, thank you for your attention to this matter.
Oh yeah, I love it. He's been doing that all for the last year and a half, but yeah.
But yeah, so he's only been doing it recently, right? And so what Hulk had found, and I forget, I'd have to kind of go through the show links and find it, but essentially, while all this Crossfire Hurricane stuff was going on, it may have been Nikki Flores. I forget who the exact person was that said it in the email, but it was basically like, going after Trump, that essentially, and then at the end it said, thank you for your attention to this matter. And I'm like, oh, is that why he's been saying this? Because he historically had never said that. And so it's like, we call it trolling. He does a little bit of trolling. He is the epic troll master.
I think he used that on some of the Tina Peters stuff last year. May have been just the tail end of last year, but it's been a while that he's done a couple of those. I wouldn't say it's just the last few weeks. It's been a little while.
Oh, no, last couple of years.
Yeah. And so I think it's a fun taunting thing. Like you say, it's him trolling him. And he does get a kick out of it. He's, he's acting very in charge.
He is the boss. Now, Juan, this one is crazy for me. And I definitely want to get into the some of the things that you had sent over about the AI and stuff like that, and I want to talk about that. But I posted this out today because, and I'm being dead honest, and this is why I asked everybody in my comment section. I think I got 6 responses. I said, be honest. And I honestly did not know this until I watched Candace Owens having a debate with Andrew Wilson today. So I put in the chat, be honest, how many of you actually knew that this Tyler Robinson case was a preliminary hearing that's been going on for 11 freaking months? And what she was mentioning, and another thing I didn't know, was they're talking about this Utah Rule 11 where they allow hearsay into this preliminary hearing as well. So what they're essentially saying is any of that information could be hearsay. And I just, I know a lot of the viewers don't, I don't get into the weeds as far as like, oh, I'm on Candace team, this, team that, whatever. I feel like it all needs to get out. But I think a lot of us in the chat especially believe, like I do, I believe they do anyway, that the official narrative is just a bunch of hogwash. And so they're trying to browbeat us to get us to believe something with, pieced together videos and then these stories about people seeing, well, no, I saw a high definition video of this. And then we had a girl that was in the courtroom at the day and she was like, no, they never showed anything separate. And then people were like, no, you weren't there. And then she's like, well, here's my wrist bracelet. And then you had another person saying, oh, I was sitting next to her. Yeah, she was there. And so it's this big, to do, but I had no idea this was a preliminary hearing and it's been going on for freaking 11 months. And this is it's a huge situation.
By the way, the anniversary is the first night of our next summit, the Storm Summit there in Vegas, September 10th. And so we will remember Charlie during that. I had been an early supporter, low 6 figures, back in the earliest days of Turning Point. And there was a certain point in there where things I felt had gone a different direction. And I was very verbal behind the scenes that I would not support it going further. And I had talked to a couple of very key people in there because I was upset. And it bothered me a lot because I felt they had lost their way in a very important way. And so that was several years before Charlie died. But in fact, just as a marker here, I had a meeting out in D.C. I had several people that flew in for it. And so I think I had 40 or 50 people present. And for a meeting, and then the next day I was doing additional meeting, like 2 days, and one of the people that was there was going to the Utah thing and wanted me to join them, and really, really wanted me to come because he wanted me to be able to talk to Charlie and try to settle this out and have an honest conversation. Apparently, Charlie had been talking behind the scenes and was concerned about things that were going a certain way, and wanted me to get a chance to have a private in-person conversation with him and try to get back on track. And I couldn't because I had other meetings that were just hypercritical. And so that person went to Utah, was present, actually spoke right there where Charlie was a couple minutes before Charlie. I think he was the last person to speak before Charlie came out and spoke, and was only a few short feet away. At a particular level, I'm just saying it, with all the drama that's going on, I would have wanted to be there, might have seen something and had a different, view or impact on what's going on at a different level. I'm glad I wasn't because of the whole shit show that has gone on ever since. And the main things that I would take from this, first off, whatever we've been told, I don't trust one piece of information at all that we've heard so far. Whatever we've been told isn't what happened as far as anything official. And there's so many wonky things with the prosecution, but one of the things that stands out to me also, I remember looking at the Boston bombing stuff, and I had one of the investigators that was involved in that, who was a friend of Chris Kyle, by the way, and there's a connection. And so he shocked me when he said, you know how long the investigation was at the Boston bombing before they started cleaning up the crime scene? I said, I don't know, a week? No, 13 minutes. What?
What?
Wait a second. What? Yeah, it was all part of the theater. So then you go back to Charlie Kirk. What did they do to the crime scene literally the next afternoon? They're tearing it apart and rebuilding it. Brought in concrete, people, everything else. On whose watch was that allowed to happen? University, police, investigators, every insurance companies, whatever. That all by itself is so wrong. If I was looking at the kid's defense, that'd be one of the, how can you reconstruct the crime scene? How can you verify all the details in the crime scene? Even with the amazing, we have cameras that we put at crime scenes that do a 360 holographic view of the entire crime scene and record everything. It's stunning what they can do now, some of this stuff. But even with something like that, which I'm not aware that they did that at this crime scene, I don't believe they did. How would you, on whose watch would it be okay, even from the university standpoint, to go in there and alter, remove stuff, pour concrete, do all sorts of things at the exact physical location where Charlie was sitting? Seriously. Insane. So, let alone the stories we were told about, he dismantled the gun. Look, I'm pretty good, and I have pretty amazing equipment, including firearms. The idea that you were going to dismantle a rifle, move it to a location and reassemble it, and have the scope be spot on without being able to sight it in is asinine. In fact, I was just watching on one of the network things, the television series or whatever, Jackal. And there's been two great movies made, the one with Bruce Willis and the one earlier. The first one was really just an amazing movie. Also, both movies were, world class. But the TV show which Jennifer doesn't like the actor that plays the jackal. He's too mean and ornery. Well, what's the bad guy supposed to be a good guy? Anyway, even he who had when he goes to shoot as a sniper, this ultra long distance shot, after he assembles his gun, he looks for a blank area on the side of the building above the location where he's going to try and shoot this guy from 2 miles out. He has to take a shot, see where the bullet actually impacts and tears the facade, adjust the scope, take another shot, and lock it in tighter, and then take another shot to make sure it's exactly spot on. Then he takes his shot. He zeroed in the scope. Okay. The idea that this kid with no experience going up there, assembling this thing, and then hitting with a shot that's in that kind of a zone, which would be a fairly simple shot for any deer hunter at that distance, really. But you still got to, get the scope zeroed in. If you dismantled it and reassembled it, it's not going to be on the right spot. It only takes a fraction to be off. Be pretty lucky to have it be right on. And that whole narrative, he dismantled it, he jumped off the roof, there's no video, there is video. There's such a crock there. But I will say this too. All the things that have come out related to Turning Point, and it pains me to say this, it bothers me to say this, but I don't think that ultimately they really will survive this. They might get a few years with momentum and everything else, but I think as more and more comes out, there's probably going to be other groups. I have a specific one I like that I'm already supporting, that I've been supporting for a very long time, and that I think probably fills that space for the community, for the country. But at this point, so many things are wrong, and things coming out without Charlie himself to pull it in. I don't think they do. And by the way, anyway, it's got other groups out there. It's like what we do at the coalition. If you have one person that's your face, they're gone. It's probably gone in not too long period of time. Sometimes they survive. Most of the time they just morph and they're not, they lose their direction. Some can survive it, but it's not the rule. I don't think without Charlie there to bring him back on point, because they were already off point by the time he was killed. I don't think they're going to be that viable when this current generation dies out. I don't think they're going to be able to pass the baton. Maybe I'll get proven wrong, but the backstory stuff is just too distracting, and you're swimming upstream to try to make it all make sense. It's so distracting that the core mission of talking to young people and getting them interested in civics and everything else, well, they're getting interested in civics and they're seeing how the justice system is totally cooked. How the investigative and policing systems are totally cooked. They're watching a shit show in the whole hearing thing. And by the way, I don't blame the attorneys for dragging this on ad infinitum, because there is so many things wrong. There is so much information needs to come out that, yeah, if I was trying to put together a defense, I'd be very harsh in fighting to get every piece of information out there, because it's so contradictory. It's just crazy.
It is.
So, and it's a distraction for the country at a critical moment. Who really was behind this? Who really benefited by this? Who was threatened by what was going on there? We found out that several people right around Charlie went to a military base just the day before. What were they doing there? We know it from their cell phone information. which should be scary to everybody here. How much do they really know about everything you're doing? You know,
Right. Did you
that's
see
why.
this? Did you,
Yeah, go ahead.
did you see this one? This was, and I forget how much, how long after, but if my recollection goes, I don't think it was much more than maybe a couple of months, but they had this that's on the screen here, off the coast of Mar-a-Lago area. It was a plane, and it was making this face, and somebody had sent it to me in the email. I apologize, it was close to a year ago, but they had sent me this email. They're like, "Are you seeing this?" I'm like, "No." So this plane was tracking back and forth and making this picture, and then so I put it with the picture that I think it is, because I think it was Charlie Kirk's face with that specific picture, actually.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, well, who the hell would do that, and who would have the technology and the know-how to even do something like that? Because to get the different colors, you got to go to different elevations and whatnot.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were able to even do that is just amazing to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That may have been a drone. Somebody told me that I was aware of that at the time, and although it was showing as an aircraft space, it may have been a drone operating that space.
Had to be.
So one of the things, and I don't know, that was just somebody told me. One of the things that I wanted to do, I want to do an event there in Vegas. That's a larger event. And, would bring a very large number of people in there, but it's premature right now. And but one of the things I wanted to do in that event was have a drone competition instead of
Nice.
fireworks and everything else, and put up a nice figure for the winnings that would encourage some of these world-class teams to come in and compete for it. First, second, third, make it worth their while, because it's very expensive to come in and run these things and do it meaningfully. But the drone capabilities for, making a face with the lights, the things that they can do are just unbelievable. It's just hard to imagine. A fireworks show kind of pales in comparison to a really well done drone presentation.
Yeah, they do look super cool, especially when they're all those bad boys working together. Definitely very cool. So on the screen right now, I got one of the images that you put, 'cause I think it was just one was dark, one was light. That says, "Right in our face, a web of lies and deceit, election fraud." And kind of you were mentioning earlier something to the point of, I think that you were kind of getting around to the point that you don't think 2020 isn't over yet.
Well, that's right. 2020, it's not over yet.
None of this stuff is. I mean, I call it circling the drain, and it seems to me the period that's in between is getting shorter and shorter, and they're exposing everything, the fraud everywhere, as you see on the screen. USAID. I mean, Juan, the Democrats, from what I understand, had to put up one of their buildings as collateral for a loan. So it tells me that they this USAID and the Doge and the fraud finding and the fraud finders are doing quite the job, because if they're hawking their friggin' their residents or their building for loans, it tells me that they're in a little bit of hot water and that they can't get their finances together at this moment.
Well, that specific picture with the AWeb, we have the Venezuelan technical team here in the U.S. that we kept safe outside the country for a number of years. Some people put up money and help keep them safe. They wanted to give their information into the U.S. and try to get some kind of sanctuary here. Not for just them, but their families also. And this has been going on for quite a while after the 2020 election. They told people whose names everybody in this audience would know instantly, who went and vetted them back in 2024, that they had flipped elections in 71 countries plus the United States. In other words, leadership, Biden's in high office and all down the ballot to all the way to dog catcher through election data manipulation. And they had moved, by the way, from Venezuela to Serbia, where the server farm was set up in Serbia that Brennan's going to answer for. He was part owner of that building. And the only reason it didn't get used in 2024 was because a military operation at the last minute. Gosh, who ordered that? Biden was still president. Who had the authority to do that? The military operation cut off the communications lines, the T1 lines, into and out of Belgrade, Serbia for the entire election period. And then wasn't until Kamala conceded the election to Trump that they breathed a sigh of relief and went ahead and shut that quarantine off of those servers. Now, that's pretty bad. 71 countries plus the United States with stolen elections. That's what they're testifying before grand juries about right now. Think of DeGenova and others. Now, step back. AWeb is a election assistance operation. It's based in South Korea, in Seoul. And the funding for it initially came from USAID, Jimmy Carter type stuff, and George Soros and China to kind of set up this operation to help monitor and assist in getting honest elections all over the world. So AWeb is now in 111 countries and has 121 offices total. So some countries, larger countries, have more than one. AWeb is managed, owned, operated, controlled behind the scenes almost exclusively by China. China's running it through South Korea. AWeb is mucking around in elections all over the world. And then you don't see huge numbers of financing directly with AWeb because out at the places where they're doing the work, they were getting USAID money at that location and helping manage how it was spent. So you don't see USAID huge at the front. They're huge at the end, but it's dispersed all over the world. All that USAID money, what did Trump do when he came into office? Day one, first few hours, signing executive orders, January 20th, 2025. He cut off the funding to most of USAID. And by the way, USAID, what's the history on them? During the church committee hearings, the director of CIA testified, because they were specifically asking about Chile and South America at the time in the testimony. He testified that concerning USAID and the activities of USAID in South America, he testified because he was being cross-examined and he was forced to, and he had to answer honestly. All USAID employees' name on it. Has that changed? And then going back a little bit further, just as a little side note, because it's interesting detail. Who was Obama's supposed mama working for when she was in Indonesia?
Sabud?
Okay. No. She was a member of the Sabud. That's the church, only 3,000 members worldwide. No, she was working for USAID. That's who her employer was. When it was a hot spot, it'd be like going to Iran right now and deciding you want to go there, take your kid, and live peaceably in the neighborhood. People don't realize how hot Indonesia was. Of course, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, everything going on there. Laos. It was just a hotbed of intrigue all across Southeast Asia, and Indonesia was the worst of the worst. And so she's there, and what's she doing? She's an aid worker, and what's her job? She's gathering information on who belongs to which family, where they live, what have they done all their life, who are the other family members. She's creating files of who's who within the country. What happened as she was just getting ready to leave Indonesia? They broke out into civil war. And the information that was put together by USAID workers, essentially mapping the country, who's who, who's related to who, was used to go out and kill. Not just throw in jail, not just, deport or something like that. Kill, on the low side, 1 million people. Estimates run as high as 5 million people. And then, by the way, she was a member of Sabud, this pseudo-religious organization with only 6 locations in the world that they operate from. Jakarta, Indonesia, Honolulu, Hawaii, the canyon there, where the canyon bands all came from. Go read the book.
Laurel Canyon?
California. Yeah, Laurel
Wow.
Canyon. So they had a thing there right down the street from Manson. And then Seattle, Washington, which was really Bellevue, Washington, by the way, and Langley, Virginia. And the president of South Korea came out during the presidential elections in 67, I believe it was, while Obama's mama was still there, and said to the press, he said, Sabud is a CIA front operating in Indonesia, trying to undermine my presidency and to flip the election, to steal the election. And he was right, because his opponent was Sukarno and Suharto. And the election got stolen, got flipped, had civil war, killed off 1 to 5 million people. Think about that. I mean, that's Mao and Stalin, early years type numbers.
Wow.
And to take control of the country. And she was in an organization that, before it was disclosed in 76, the church committee hearings, it seemed like an innocuous organization. But the director of CIA said all USAID employees in South America are working for the CIA. In the hotspot on planet Earth, which was Indonesia at the time, you suppose that Obama's mama wasn't working for CIA? Look, mom was doing CIA. Where did the Marcoses go when they went into exile? They left the Philippines with $10 billion in stolen money, and they moved to Honolulu. Who was their personal banker? Coots, Obama's grandmother.
Wow.
Who was the father? The father, grandma, was working for CIA, doing the treasury type stuff. Dad was working for the FBI as an informant. Who was his good buddy? Frank Marshall Davis. He's supposedly, moving furniture around, this and that. No, he's drinking the asset of FBI, tracking Frank Marshall Davis, taking Obama along as a cover. Oh yeah, I got a black grandbaby. I'm a revolutionary. We're anti-government. And Obama was just somebody's tool. Let me just say this. I do have some. Imagine that you're somebody's tool before you're even born. Obama was never his own man, really, growing up. He was just a tool in a bunch of intelligence operatives' basket. First of all, Obama wasn't born to Stanley Ann Dunham. I guarantee you, he was not born to Stanley Ann Dunham. She is not his birth mother. In June, several persons who knew her from high school at Mercer Island High School Mercer Island, Washington. Other girls that went to school with her saw her registering for fall classes in June of, I believe it was 60. And she was wearing kind of a veiled summer, cape, see-through, and then had a swimsuit on. She was not prego. She was going to go down to the Franken Arboretum and go canoeing with somebody. And so, which is near the big stadium you see right by the Lake Washington. There's a canoe house, where the sculls are for all the skull training, and you could rent canoes and go out into a little pond area and roll around in there. It's just kind of a fun thing. And so she wasn't prego mid-June. She shows up late September, and she's got a baby, and then she needs other of the gals who know her from high school. And those girls went on the record before Obama even became president and said that baby was not born a month earlier. He's supposedly born August 4th, I think, 1960. 60 or 61, I always get it mixed up. And so there's no way that he was a month and a half old, 2 months old. He was already rolling over and trying to crawl. When he'd take a dump, man, you had to have a freaking, dump truck to grab it all. Those, when those diapers say, up to 25 pounds, they're not kidding. They won't hold 1 ounce more.
Oh,
I'm
man.
stealing a joke from one of the big comedians. They won't hold 1 ounce more. But so Obama was never his own man. And from before he was born, he was born up at the Peace Arch Hospital in Vancouver, BC, a little Indonesian girl, and the rest of the stories, it gets more bizarre from there. But he has blood from very important bloodline in him. So they keep track of him. They make sure he gets blessed. He was handed off to be raised by Stanley Ann Dunham as though she was his own kid, so she could use him for cover to get into areas where darker skinned people were at. And of course, then went to Indonesia. The pictures that you see of Obama in Hawaii, supposedly meeting his dad, Obama visited Hawaii, all totally photoshopped. Every last one, totally photoshopped, easy to prove, not even hard. The picture of him with grandma and grandpa out at Columbia, sitting on the bench, totally photoshopped, totally easily provable. Obama never went to Columbia, never went to Harvard. The people who were in the same class, which include Michael Medved, radio host. Michael was in the exact same class, had like 23 students in it, doing political science. Never once in a 4-year degree saw Obama, not once. And none of the other students saw him. Why is that? Because Columbia has been being used for fake histories for quite a while by CIA. And by the way, you know who's in charge of those fake histories in that time period that these were first generated?
Yeah.
Brennan.
Well, kind of that, right?
Okay. So Brennan was in charge of that. Who created the false history over at Harvard? Brennan. He never went to Harvard. He was never doing any of the law stuff there. It's all a complete concoction. And at the time, who supposedly came up with the money to let him go to Harvard, pay the tuition, blah, blah, blah. It was the guy that was the accountant for the Saudis on a bunch of their stuff. And he, gave supposedly a letter of commendation, all that. Well, it was all bullshit. Nobody paid anything. And the letter of recommendation, just to make it look like it was from Al Mansour, like it was legitimate. Even that document was generated by Brennan. Where did Brennan go later and was head of station for the CIA? Hello, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what ends up happening? Obama gets in office. What's the cover? Well, I got to take care of Brennan. He's the one that knows my whole history. That's who, had to protect the history of Obama. And remember, where did Obama's passport information go and disappear along with Hillary's and with McCain's? What was going to show up in there? That was the secret trip by Obama when he was 18 over to Pakistan, when we weren't going to Pakistan. No American citizen could go to Pakistan. And he did it what? With an Indonesian passport, not with an American passport. Think about that.
Spooky, little spooky.
So yeah, so the long and short of it is, I guess I get easily distracted. A lot of this stuff is stuff that will come out very decisively concerning Obama, his history. The reason I guess I went on that whole diatribe was this. I don't have any, I'm not going to apologize for Obama. He's a grown man. A lot of things have happened. But from the time he was born, before he was born, he was somebody's tool. He was moved around, shifted around, all this stuff done. They played with his brain. He thinks he went to Mars and walked on Mars, was teleported. That we have that technology. He was on drugs. It was controlled to make him believe certain things. He is himself a victim of that MK Ultra operation. And then at a certain point, how could you extract yourself? Your history is all built around that. You try to leave, there's no route for you. You're channeled in. Your only way is forward within that community. And he was groomed in the homosexuality at a very early age, and controlled there also. So I don't know that even that's, he's been being tweaked all the way along. And by the way, just on the sex stuff, remember his mama, Danielle Dunham, before she supposedly got pregnant with Obama, was already involved in intelligence operations at 16 or 15, depending on which narrative you go by. Frank Marshall Davis got money the same as Hugh Hefner got, same source, CIA. He got money to do a sex magazine. And, Hugh Hefner says he got the money from friends and relatives. No, he didn't. He got it from CIA to create a honeypotting magazine and a honeypotting operation that they could use. And that was the original source of his money. Frank Marshall Davis got some of the same money. And by the way, if anybody wants to dispute that, let's go a little bit further down the road just for greens. A decade later, they have the bunny plane, bunny ears, all it's beautiful, follow the white rabbit. And when the Playboy Club got into trouble and they had the Playboy DC-9 aircraft, beautiful airplane, really was. One of the greatest airplanes ever built, by the way. Got slimed because of the whole operation, which was another cover with the DB Cooper thing. That was a CIA operation. What was going on in the press at the time that they had to do DB Cooper and take this other situation off the front pages? Go look and see. So they did a cover operation with DB Cooper. That's why they never let him get caught. Okay. And there's a book I've been helping one of the people involved in it that should be out sometime next year, showing that whole situation there. And but Obama's mama. Oh, I was going to finish on the bunny plane. When Playboy Mansion got in trouble, Playboy Club got in trouble. They have this airplane, and they're going bankrupt. How do you save Playboy? Because it's a crucial cover operation where you got all this critical honeypotting going on. You can't let Playboy go bankrupt. So what they did is they started leasing out the Playboy bunny jet. Who releases it? Department of Defense and DARPA. And they're flying executives around and generals and everybody else. And the German people from Germany, we brought over Project Paperclip. So you got a bunch of German spy intelligence officers, high, up in the space program, working places like Area 51. And what's their plane they're flying around in? The Bunny jet. And then they're paying the leasing fees at over market rates because it's a luxurious jet. They're paying to lease the Bunny jet because it's black. Well, they didn't paint over the bunny ears. They're using the Franken Playboy jet to fly all over the world, and then they pay the fees, and the money is so much that it pulls Playboy out of bankruptcy.
Damn.
Okay, well, who was behind that? Hello. That was the people behind the scenes that needed to keep things flowing with their covert operations. Now, you go to Frank Marshall Davis. He gets money from the same person that funded Hugh Hefner. Hefner was obviously wildly more successful. But Frank Marshall Davis went further than Playboy. At the time, Playboy only showed breasts and no further. That changed in, I think, about 67 or so. And 67, 8, 9, something like that. And because the public's taste had morphed and acceptance had morphed. Of course, if you're in a MK Ultra thing, you're trying to move public perception, acceptability, etc. And this was part of that operation. But Frank Marshall Davis, he did an S&M, sex and masochism. That's what S&M means. So it's bondage, whips, handcuffs, chains, all that kind of thing. Pretty extreme for 1956, 57, okay? And 58, I guess, whatever. So Obama's mama is one of the models in the first S&M magazine that Frank Marshall Davis photographs and takes to market. Kind of an underground magazine. It goes to, other locations outside the U.S. or the secret places. Not. She is 15, arguably maybe 16 when she does the photo layouts. And those are out there. They're in the internet. They're not fake. Those are real. In her specific case, there's no nudity, but she's dressed in the very provocative stuff that goes with the S&M title. Well, who set her up to do that? It wasn't just Frank Marshall Davis. Dad was the FBI asset. He sacrificed his daughter into that operation. She was in the system, working as an asset as a teenager. So when it comes time for her to go over to the University of Washington and walk around with a black baby to develop a role in preparation to go to Indonesia and have some kind of cover story, that's what she's doing. And by the way, lots of different cover stories involved here. Let me just add this. So when Indonesia comes off the rails, she comes back to the U.S. What does she do for the next couple of decades, amongst other things? Stanley Ann Dunham changes her name and works for Sabood under a new name, Loretta Fuddy, as the accountant for the whole Sabood organization. What's her mother do? Her mother is the accountant for the and special banker for the Marcoses. She's in the family business. That's what they do. And then all the Sabood stuff that happens in the interim. Sabood's all over this stuff. It supposedly had 3,000 members worldwide back in that era. Probably was more like about 1,000. And they staged a bunch of events. And most of the stuff is probably photoshopped even there. Okay? So it was just a cover for CIA, just like Sicardo said. Just like he said, it's the CIA cover operation. So then we come up even to now with all the things going on, all the disclosures, and you look at AWeb. Who's really controlling and running AWeb to control elections? all over the world, 111 countries. We thought it was bad with 71 countries plus the United States with the Venezuelans. By the way, the Venezuelan operation, who's actually running that? Web. That's who's helping with that.
Damn.
Okay? This is far bigger than most people realize. And the Chinese are running it. We're paying for it. USAID, why do you think Trump defunded them across the board everywhere that you look? No more USAID this, no more USAID that. We're stopping all of it. Why? Because they're involved in election fraud. When we get into this, what Trump said, you have to think of the magnitude of what he said. I don't think probably virtually anybody in this audience has actually thought this through completely. So let me walk you through this. President Trump came out 3.5 weeks ago, Thursday night. 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, 4 weeks now, I guess. I travel, I lose track of time. I'm a time traveler. So he comes out, he tells not just America, but the world that China stole the 2020 election. He doesn't just say interfered with. They stole it. They put Biden in. Those are strong words. Those are fighting words. By the way, nuclear weapons are a WMD, weapon of mass destruction. COVID, WMD, if it's weaponized and spread out across the world, that's the weapon of mass destruction. Same category as nuclear. Chemical weapons, same category as nuclear, weapon of mass destruction by international law. Internationally recognized as a WMD threat, which warrants particular types of responses, nation state to nation state, or to a terrorist organization. Digital, same category as a nuclear weapon, same category as a chemical, biological, nuclear. A digital attack is nation to nation, is the equivalent of a nuclear attack, and triggers certain potential responses, authorities, and a country will not be taken into an international court and tried for war crimes for responding to a WMD threat against it. So if you think about what Trump said, he drew the line, threw down the gauntlet. China committed an act of war against America by interfering in our elections and seating Biden in the presidency, in the Oval Office, which has impact not just in Washington, D.C., not just across America. The world was affected by that. The world was hijacked in that operation that China led. Trump was very clear. China did this. Mm-hmm. And we, at this moment in time, think about it this way. And I want to go somewhere with this. China. Think of White House lawn here in a second. Remind me. China went out, had a plan for the whole world, like any megalomaniac Bond movie, Our Man Flint, tongue in cheek. They wanted to take over the world. They have a plan to take over the whole world. So AWEB is a key component in that plan. From Seoul, South Korea, with the cover of being in another country, they have reach out into the whole world, 111 countries, 121 different locations. By the way, 111 is the number of war. It's total war. 11 is the number of chaos, confusion, disorder, because after Judas betrayed Christ, there was only 11, and they were in disorder. Then 11 is war. 11 total war. Of course, that's the numbers that were on the license plate of the Archduke, coded in when he was killed, and we went into World War I. And then when they shut down World War I, when did they do it? At 11 o'clock in the morning, on the 11th day of November, which is the 11th month, they ended the First World War. 11, 11, 11. They have to put their codes in various places they feel the need to. So 111, World War III, as far as they're concerned. Why do they always write it like that, by the way? Because of this. So it's a 111, World War III. And so in this world war, and I don't take this lightly, I actually think this is extremely intentional. The number of countries where world election system, AWEB, Association of World Election Systems, operates is on purpose. They wanted that number. And then when you think of even web, why would you put that term in there? I think of Star Trek, and a lot of folks in this audience will remember the scene with the Tholian web and Tholian web of containment, and Dr. Spock talking to Kirk. Sir, if they complete this web that they're constructing right now around our ship, we will not be able to escape it. We do not have the skill or technology, the energy to be able to escape it. We'll be trapped forever. Okay. Well, that's the AWEB system. What's the crisis in the vote right now? If we go through with the election this year, 11-3, 3 times 11, total war. If we go through with the election on 11-3 here in America, it would seal the deal. And the politicians that would get in power, the stuff to try and investigate whatever's in the vote like that, we'd never get through it. They'll change the laws. They're already changing them on vote systems all over the country, and the way they're going to count the vote, who's authorized, how it's going to do. They're supposedly upgrading the technology to protect us. They're hiding so much of the theft, information-wise, like that was in the machines. If you went through with this election this fall, you would have a Tholian web completed around not just America, but the world, because who's going to free the other countries? Without America, there's no hope for the rest of them. So if we don't get our act together here, the rest of the world is in this worldwide web of containment, this Tholian web, and we're at the whim and will of the oligarchs, the globalista, the banks out of Britain, the globalists, bloodlines. We'll never get free of it. They'll have us in continuous war. They want America to go into civil war. And by the way, that's the reason why Trump hasn't acted differently sooner under advice of the generals that invited him to run. There's a work being done so that America can function, maintain whole speed, while the election stuff and the frauds, the Russia, the financial, everything else has to work through. This slowness to make everything happen is a protective measure so that we don't see the country thrown into such disarray we fall into civil war. And that has been the plan all the way along, trying to get Trump, bait him into signing the Insurrection Act, doing other stuff, even by well-meaning people. It would have led to civil war. Even the people right now trying to get, well, we could run this election. We could fix this before the election. We just can't run in this location because there's this fraud here, and there's this fraud in this other place, and this other fraud. So we got to piecemeal it. Well, what you'd have if you did this piecemeal thing in a staged election freezing, which is a conversation I had earlier today. It was very frustrating with someone that should know better. Very influential person in his own lane. What you do is you'd have the makings for civil war in America, because as soon as you say California's got a bunch of vote stuff that they can't vote, but it's okay if they vote in Oklahoma, or it's okay if they vote in Montana. Well, now you have a spotty election and a lot of federal positions on the line. And who's to say that California is all frauded out? Who's the authority doing that? Which judge authorized you to pause that, Trump? And pretty soon, some of the states are siding with California and some of the states are siding with Montana, and you're into some kind of disorder. that leads to ultimately disputes over shipping goods, whose taxes are going to be paid. We're going to block it off at the border. Even citizens can't come here. And by the way, you can have some other supposed outbreak, and now you can't have your citizens here because you might be contaminated. And other states saying, we're not going to put a mask on. Give me a break. That's still on the table, by the way, in its own way. So the only answer to this is exactly what I believe Trump is going to do. I've been very outspoken about it. Others are coming to this. I had Peter Tickton, is the attorney friend of Trump, on the stage at the Fraud Fighter Summit, in June. And we were talking about the fall election, and he kind of was, well, I mean, there's some things that maybe could be done before the fall election. He was trying to be nice because this is a touchy subject matter. And I said, well, okay, what about the primaries? Because you've already got primaries that run under fraudulent voter rolls. And so you'd have to unwind those primaries because otherwise to go to the general election, the people that get potentially elected are there through fraud. You're going to be able to get through the courts. We haven't been able to get through the courts so far with valid information. That's very true, not because we didn't have good information, but because the courts wouldn't hear it. They wouldn't give standing. They are elusive in this way. So eventually, in talking with Peter, you can go back and see the video. It's out there for the public. I said, well, what about this? And he says, well, yeah, you're right. There's no way to run the fall elections under these circumstances. And I said, so the only answer, I've been saying pause the election because it's kind of a kind way and it helps people realize we're going to have them again. A pause means we're going to restart at some point in time, just doesn't define exactly when. But I said, a full stop. What's required here is a full stop. Mm-hmm. And then clear this out, and then we can go forward. And that's exactly what Trump's going to do. Well, other speakers at the event, pretty knowledgeable, have said the same thing. Professor Clements did a great presentation concerning that, and others. Now you have Steve Bannon. He's told his listeners, and Steve Bannon, by the way, he's going to be at our event in September in person. He's looking forward. It's going to be a big deal. In fact, we have a discount code for anybody that knows. If you punch in War Room, you get $100 off for coming in, just because Steve has done a lot of work and he's going to be there in person, and he helped put that together with my chief of staff. So anyway, War Room. So anyway, Steve has told his audience that he believes that Trump may pause the fall election and announce that as soon as August, late August, last week of August. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's the last week of October or right in that zone near the end of October for a whole bunch of reasons, but that I can quantify. But that doesn't mean Steve's exactly completely wrong. I do think what we're going to have as we get to the end of all of the primaries, there will be a national intelligence paper that's given to Trump officially, noting the security issues within the coming election. That will be the technical basis for Trump then addressing all the various agencies, vetting that data, confirming it several ways, having the investigations done, and then at the end, concluding for the nation based on that threat assessment concerning foreign interference in the fall election, having to pause the election or full stop. Now, something just happened yesterday that I think is interesting to the audience. I don't think I've said this anywhere publicly. I don't know if very many people caught this. Asked my chief of staff to get the video clip for us, and I'll try to get it out there, a few different ways as the day progresses. Might even be my emails now. But as Peter Navarro, who works in the White House with the president on all the business stuff for the country, was out on the White House front lawn transiting yesterday, and one of the news people stopped him briefly and was asking about the fall election and security, and what's Trump going to do? And he said something to the effect of, the elections are completely compromised, cannot be fixed. The only answer is full stop. Essentially what I said, for several years, we're going to have to before it's over. But in the thing, and by the way, when I had Peter Tickton on the stage, so like a week and a half later, Newsweek did an article about Peter Tickton, and it was kind of railing him for what he said on stage there, that he believes the elections have to be paused or stopped, to that effect, as though, well, but the Constitution and various things wouldn't allow the president to do that. Well, excuse me, what people need to understand here, and this is where I was going, people need to think bigger. And I appreciate you giving me a moment to just build this out for folks so they can do their own assessment and see if I'm right or not, and see if they agree. President Trump, March 13th of 2020, declared a national security emergency related to COVID. Then on March 15th, he went to Cheyenne Mountain, did a walkthrough. A bunch of work had been done. A massive upgrade of the system there during his entire presidency. As he's leaving, he asked the general, do you have everything you need? Yes. Is there anything that you didn't get? No. So you are ready to go. If you had to be locked up for 5 years or whatever, could you guys do it if we had a national emergency of some sort, so China attacks us or whatever, aliens land? And he says, absolutely, sir, we could stay field unlimited, indefinitely. Okay, 100 years war, aliens land, and they're the last line of defense. To maintain continuity of government, restore the constitutional authorities over the territory and for the people of the United States. President Trump then goes over to the media, which have all their microphones, a whole wall of them, just outside. You can see the big safe type door in the background, and entering into the mountain and all that. And that's just one of several. It's not just a single one. So anyway, he walks up to the media and he says, out of an abundance of caution, after he's told how beautiful and upgraded and everything else the mountain is, he says, out of an abundance of caution, because we may just have been attacked and we may be at war, but not realize it yet. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm sealing up, asking General Staff here, seal up the mountain until further notice. The logic being that if members of the teams that run our nuclear counter offense operations, our nuclear deterrent from inside the mountain, if one person got in there, or if one supply got in there, can of jelly gets in there and it's got some of the virus in there, the bacterium, whatever you want to call whatever might have been there, then the facility could be compromised. We might not be able to provide a robust response. So out of an abundance of caution, seal it up, seal the personnel away from all outside contact. And because remember, at that time, the numbers that were being put out by the fake media, you would go to an end-of-life center like they had in Bellevue, Washington, and 20 people that are there to die, terminal illness, days or weeks to live, and they all get COVID, and like 17 of the 20 die of COVID. But in a healthier population, it might only be half of the population. But that's the potential numbers as this grows out. The stuff that was being said was absolutely otherworldly. And so the idea that you could have this COVID take out the facility by taking out the personnel, yeah, you got to seal it up till further notice. So Trump did just that. Here's the part where it gets wonky. In reality, COVID, as it was spread out across the world, wasn't about the flu. It wasn't SARS-2. It was an optical illusion, an optical delusion run by the globalista, run by China. And the real objective of the COVID operation from day one was to change the way we did elections. Remember Biden, people having to sit 6 feet apart to hear a presentation with a big white circle around it? Like that was how you're going to run your rallies and keep people safe. How many people show up to? Remember those images? That was completely insane.
Like a 30 cars in a parking lot.
Right. I mean, and then they got to keep their, cars parked 6 feet apart, sit in the car and listen over the radio while he's at the other end of the place. Complete, total insanity, right? It was about not having people come and vote at a vote center because they might spread the disease. So we got to have drop boxes. We got to have mail-in ballots. Further pushing narratives that were already in play, but going to outer space. And then these false people, just like Obama is somebody's creation. Okay. Mark Zuckerberg is somebody's creation. He didn't invent Facebook. Facebook was created at DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Program. It was called LifeLog. Took 5 years, $100 million that Congress approved. That money in the DARPA system, if you were in the private sector at that time, it'd be like $5 billion. Today, it'd be like $25 billion, okay, to create Facebook. He was given that. This whole thing with the movie and all the other false misinformation, he didn't create Facebook. It was given to him. And the Winklevoss twins, if he didn't create Facebook, how could they have had a part in creating it and need their money? No, you needed to double down. You needed to split the bet because there was so much money in Facebook. You needed to spread it into other operations. What are the Winklevoss twins involved in? Bitcoin. Where did Bitcoin come from? It's a DARPA operation. I know the guys that were working on the blockchain stuff in DARPA in the 90s. Come on, man. Bitcoin is a DARPA operation, okay? Where's Satoshi? Where's Satoshi? Oh, yeah, it's a hybridized name for the team members, okay? Oh, I got that. Tongue-in-cheek, yeah, whatever. So now you come back and you look at our situation on the elections. We've been played with. COVID was part of it. Zuckerberg gave $400 million just for the drop boxes, plus more for vote machines, Dominion vote machines in places that didn't have them. So you could have, he's such a kind guy. He was just trying to help the country. No, these are people from embedded operations working together collusively to steal the vote in America forever. Not one agency over at Homeland Security wasn't involved to try and cook the vote. Okay, they didn't provide their individual agency reports on election interference, foreign election interference, which is what the executive order 13848 was about. It was supposed to be provided to Trump 45 days after the election. And it's the reason that Sidney Powell, the Flynn brothers, Patrick Byrne, a couple other people went to the White House and tried to get Trump to allow Sidney to make a executive order for an insurrection act, because there's not one on the shelf that you do. Lincoln drew one up, but it wouldn't work today. You have to draw one up fresh. And they wanted her to be able to do that. Trump initially agreed, and then in the J6 testimony a year later under Pelosi, it came out in the testimony that after that crew left the White House near midnight, the president didn't go to sleep. He met with general staff and an admiral or two, and they counseled him in reviewing what was said in the previous conversation and told him that in no wise could he have even the Insurrection Act document drawn up because legal issues would arise. Hello, did they? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he signed it or not. And if he did sign it, it would lead to civil war by the end of the spring or early summer here in the U.S. Why? How would it lead to civil war? Remember what the Obamas made for a movie after they left office during Trump's first term?
Civil War.
The movie about Civil War. Talk about programming. Is it possible? Well, here's a scenario. Okay. Oh, it's just Hollywood. Well, you're being pre-programmed. Civil war is possible in America. What has the entire operation been about from day one, before Trump was even asked to run, let alone the Q stuff? Conditioning the public to understand what's going on so enough of the people could talk articulately about where we were at and avoid civil war. There will be civil unrest. Trump is going to pause the fall elections. As Navarro said out on the White House lawn yesterday, full stop. He deals with the president all day long, every day. Does he have the authority to say something like that? Are you being conditioned little teeny piece by little teeny piece? Brace yourself, get ready. And by the way, it's not a violation of anything. And he's not, going to have to wait for a court to judge against him on declaring a national emergency, because the declaration of a COVID national emergency wasn't actually about COVID, the flu, and who was behind COVID beyond the flu. It was about the elections. And when Trump talks about COVID, he's really talking primarily about the elections. And what China did using COVID, and other groups around the world did using COVID, and what AWEB did as an organization with USAID money, using COVID as a cover to steal elections across the planet. It's not just 71 countries plus the US. It's 111 countries. War. And we are at war. Now, for us, right now, it seems, okay, war, I don't see any bullets flying. There's no lead in the air. About the time that you decide you're pausing the election, how do you think some of the Democrats and most of the rhinos are going to act? They're going to come off the rails. They're going to cry foul. Their problem is this. Based on the way the code is written, that NORAD is operating under, that the president is operating under, concerning continuity in government, Congress has the right to shut down a national emergency declared by the commander-in-chief or president. They have 1 year, 365 and a quarter calendar days. If they don't vote with a 2/3 vote of the House and the Senate to shut down the national emergency that a president has declared or a commander-in-chief, then it stands. And there's no further opportunity or action by any portion of the U.S. government to stop the national emergency. The commander-in-chief is in total control. He is king. All Trump is going to do is expand the existing national emergency to pause the election because of the election interference and the data that's current right now. This election is not secure. It's not able to be secured because of the interference that's occurred, even through all the primaries. Ongoing election interference for the security of the country. We're going to have to pause it. And oh, by the way, for the people that are going to go out there and get all upset and excited, no, I just looked. I looked on the internet. Biden stopped the national emergency.
Nope.
Oh, he's saying that. Okay, here's a question. Once Trump declared a national emergency related to the COVID and shut up Cheyenne Mountain on a wartime setting, because we may be at war. Now he's told you China was behind it. We're at war. You have to stitch some of the words together, because to be gentle, we don't want people jumping off of buildings, overhearing some of the stuff. This is about helping people to come to grips with what's going on. People waking up out of a coma, which I've had 2 people that I was there with them as they came out of long comas, almost 2 months, both cases, and got their bearings, figured out where they were at, what happened. Who are you? Even though you've known them for, 30, 40 years, as they get their bearings. The whole country is coming out of a coma induced by the media and everything else. When Trump declared the national security emergency regarding COVID, sealed up Cheyenne Mountain, it was on a wartime footing. When he came out and did his address here a couple Thursdays ago, what he told you was China flipped the election. He didn't say just interfered. China was behind putting Biden in office. Biden did not win the election legitimately. But before that election occurred, when Trump sealed up Cheyenne Mountain, there's a meme that Trump showed at all of his rallies in the intervening period. And it's this graph, this picture, and it's a picture of the illegal immigration into America. And it shows that the low point for illegal immigrants coming into America was late March of 2020. And then it began, mid-March to late March. Of course, the figures lag because it's when it's reported. And then it ramps back up again. In that meme, which was shown at all of Trump's rallies, they just always showed it every chance they could, just for a second or two. In the lower right-hand corner, what nobody was really catching, nobody was going back and looking at it, there's an arrow leading from a sentence, and the arrow goes right to that low point there in March. And it says, President Trump resigned the presidency. What?
Yeah, leaves office. I got it on the screen right here, buddy.
There you go. So he resigned the presidency. No, he went all the way to when Biden came into office. I saw it. It was on TV. He just wouldn't go to the inauguration ceremony. He went down to Mar-a-Lago. He might not have given the nuclear codes over, but he didn't leave the presidency. Did he? And if he did leave the presidency, but he was still serving in some public forum there at the White House and everything else, flying around in the jet, what was really going on? Well, was he operating as president, or was he operating as commander in chief?
Yep, the second one.
You see where I'm at there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, dude, and we've seen so many weird things over the years. I mean, it was, I stopped looking after like a year and a half. You know how like all of the Navy, the Army, Marines, they all follow the president. Well, they weren't following Biden, right? And so I stopped looking after a certain part of time. And then he and Kamala Harris allegedly took a plane flight together, which you shouldn't have the president and the vice president on a plane at all. And then any plane that he was on was never named Air Force One. It was like SAM or something else.
Let me add one more thing, okay? One of the best theater that happened in the whole thing, I'm telling you. Even better than the four Bidens, bicycle Biden. We used to laugh about him. Can't walk up the steps Biden. You had 4 different actors that took the role at different times. Is when he was climbing onto Air Force One. Well, okay, so it's a older Air Force One, Air Force 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And he goes on the plane as they're going up the ramp. The plaque, which is supposed to be the presidential seal on the side of the plane, falls off the plane. Okay. You're going to take a plane with a glue-on thing that's just stuck to it with magnets or whatever. And you're going to go out and go 500 knots, and that thing isn't going to blow off. It's not painted on there. What, you can take it off before it takes off. And then the other thing is when they start the thing up, and this was so intentional. They start the thing up, and the engine cavity is just flooded with kerosene. So you have this huge black smoke, gray smoke trail that just about kills everybody on the flight line, right? And Biden's on the plane. And it's like, this is what you would use. And it's not the 747. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So now I'm saying to the audience here, okay, we've established there's something else going on here. When the president decides it's the right moment and he declares that we're not going forward with the 2026 election, that is something that's never happened before. It is so stunning. It's so shocking, not just for America, but across the world. It draws a different line. And then as arrests begin to happen on the Russia stuff, Gitmo gets opened up, other things start happening. Is the country going into some type of martial law, tanks in the intersections and guarding every street, and the troops with machine guns and like that? The reality is, the reason that we've gone through this intervening pause and even taking all of these bad guys out of circulation. When Trump was, in the first minutes as he was doing the inauguration and started signing the various executive orders that he did right off the bat. Within a minute of him signing the executive order declaring that certain terrorists or certain criminal organizations were actually terrorist groups, which would allow the leaders' arrests, such as Tren de Aragua. I get texts, yeah, I just got orders. What? Yeah, I just got orders after report. Well, the guys that were getting the orders, because I had several, not just one, they were all people that specialized in particular types of operations that would reach into arresting these gang leaders. And then you saw a few days later, this gang leader's been arrested, that gang leader's been arrested. There were others weren't publicly announced. You even saw him going in to get one in the orange suit that was actually put out to the public, and then they were transferred to other locations around the world. The other, within their own countries of origin, things like that. Why was that important? Because in the course of what Trump was doing at many levels, in fact, then over the ensuing next few weeks, some of these gang leaders who their apprehension wasn't even known, they thought, the others of the gang thought that they had gone into hiding and thought that they were still talking with them. So they're coordinating moving ammunition to other gang members up in the Midwest. And so you had a couple of different van truckloads of bullets that were going to other gang members. What were they going to do? Cause disruption in America. And they got pulled over for differing reasons. A van was the best one. Supposedly he had his high beams on. So they pulled him over. As they're looking, they find all the bullets. Well, the reason it wasn't high beams, it was regular lights. The guys are complaining. No, we didn't have our high beams on. No, because you had so much weight in the back of the van, the nose of the van sticking up so high, it was hitting everybody else right in the eyes. But that was why they were pulled over. No, they weren't pulled over for that. They're under surveillance. They've been given up by their gang leaders. And so they thought that they were, incognito. Nobody knew they were there. And we took them off the streets. Operations like that, including the early and most important ICE operations, people that were going to act in a terroristic manner to stop Trump and to take the country off course. Now you're headed towards, the long side of of a year and a half, headed for 2 years with Trump in power, dismantling a lot of those internal systems that would attack the American public. The ones that are left with the various organizations, BLM and things like that, have been gutted. A lot of the smarter members are, going somewhere else, looking for a safe haven that doesn't have extradition. The ones that are a little less sharp, they think they're going to survive very long. It's going to be like it was back in 2020 with all their mischief. Think again. Trump declares the national emergency related to elections. And then this is a military operation We were attacked with a weapon of mass destruction. China's been named as the perpetrator. So within that vein, where China has been named a nation state level attack, war type measures for national security are appropriate and authorized. When we're under a military command structure, because Trump's not going to operate as president, he's operating as commander in chief. When he stops the election, he does that as commander in chief, and he'll enforce it with the military. Now, already Oregon, California, a couple of Western states are challenging that the president's going to try and interfere in the election. They want judges to stop the president from interfering in the way that they hold the elections in these states. Well, when he does it, he's not doing it as president. He's doing it as commander in chief. There's no judge in America or on the planet, for that matter, that will have the authority to override the president when he says, I'm pausing the election. It's a national security issue. And if any judge does try to do that, they can be picked up for insurrection, thrown in the slammer, and they might be there a while. So it's a different set of rules that we're going to be under. And even governors, where governors of certain states think that they're going to stop Trump from blocking them from holding their election. And it's a state's right, and we're going to do it. And then we're going to try and force the crooked outcome to put people into Congress and all that, or have civil war. What's going to happen is they try to do this, then Trump will, in fact, take a military control and have regional governors. The way that NORAD is set up is for 10 regional governorships, military governors, generals, because we're under military attack. COVID was about the vote. It was an attack within the elections. The biological was just the cover, the shots and everything else. And there's, I don't know, but Trump knew you got the shot, they were killing people. We're in a wartime condition. You're occupied France. You're in occupied territory. By the way, let me just add this one last thing. Why were certain actions required? What was the magnitude of the threat against us? This isn't just like a TV series. This isn't Batman and Robin, pow, zowie, ouch. Okay, come back next week and see how our caped crusaders get out of this mess. This is life and death. The stakes weren't just for America, they're for the whole world. This is planetary. The COVID thing was an attack planetary, to take and put the whole planet into a Tholian web of containment that these guys could run and rule in. Very Luciferian, because most of these guys are Luciferians. When the president does this, it will have to be done without any backing up or half measures. We have an example in South Korea where the president of South Korea, President Yoon, knew that there was fraud in the elections in what amounted to their midterms and wanted to expose it. He gave warning to his enemies for several weeks, even a month or two, that he may have to send troops into the National Election Center because it's supposedly neutral territory for many politicians to get an honest vote. Well, it was a capture operation being run by China. And he wanted to get the real numbers and the ballots and everything else where they were cooking stuff. When he finally did it, they were expecting it. And in fact, some of the National Guard troops were on the other side. So the declaration of this national emergency and deploying of the National Guard only went to a couple places. They didn't block anybody's cars in the street. The whole emergency lasted 2.5 hours. And then they didn't get what they were looking for. Conveniently, the guys went to the wrong area of the center, got the wrong stuff, couldn't prove the case. President gets voted out of, impeached, and then trial and goes to prison. He's in prison for life. His wife, because she supposedly supported him in his insurrection, she's in prison for life. It's like 5 years, but they use her to keep him from talking. If he gets too out of line and tries to assist or back up the people that are protesting the elections in South Korea, then his wife might have as good a fate. So he's being very reserved. This is what we're fighting. So Trump will not make the same mistake. And in fact, the generals behind Trump will not make the same mistake. Yoon and the people around him were given good advice. They didn't follow it. They tried to do a half measure. They just weren't that aggressive. They wanted to kind of get along, go along, and help the people and everything else. In fact, they showed up with a knife to a gunfight. And ultimately even a nuclear fight. Trump's not going to do that. Trump's showing up with a nuclear key and beyond day one. And this won't be over in a few days or a week or two. When he pauses it, it will be indefinite until we get the election system straightened out. Bare ass minimum, the fastest I think you can get all of that done is, and remember, if you're going to do it one day, hand count paper ballot, voted where it can or counted where it cast, make it a national holiday, things like that. In a perfect world, it takes 6 months. The reality is it's probably more like 9 months to a year. And then by the time you do that, when you want to start running votes again, even for a special election, because some people are going to be in jail, if you haven't got the voter rolls cleaned up, how can you run a special election? So you may have a couple of places that are essentially a version of a test vote for critical offices to get people back into Congress and then begin building out the other stuff. It's a process, and it won't be done in a day. You could end up all the way up to 2028 and make a case that that's how far it's got to go. And by the way, why could Trump say that he wants to run for president in 2028? Because they interfered in his election. And as the meme shows, he resigned the presidency. He didn't leave office. He took on the mantle of commander-in-chief. He didn't finish the first term. He still could go do a second term. This term right now isn't the second term, it's the continuation of the first, because if he's operating as commander-in-chief and you're going through this whole facade operation, you make the case that he's still entitled to another one. I actually don't personally think that's exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting to watch this play out. So I droned on a long time. I have probably 50 other things I could say, but I apologize. I wanted to, I hope you didn't fall asleep, your listeners didn't fall asleep. And by the way, I know I've said the same thing on other broadcasts, pieces here, pieces there. You gave me a chance to kind of put it all in one fell swoop, and I appreciate that. And sometimes for people that maybe have heard some of this before, look, it's what it is. What I'm supposed to go tell you something totally new. Space aliens just landed. They were doing water ski demonstrations in Florida, et cetera. I'm not. It's
I'm supposed to tell them that yet.
It's what it is. Okay, I don't need to make up some, added to story. Sometimes you have to hear it a couple times for it to sink in. We're at war. We're at a worldwide war right now. We're the first ones up. And the rest of the world's going to need all the help we can give them, because this isn't just America where the elections got stolen. It's all through the world. So we got to go out and help those people too. And we have a certain responsibility, like it or not, because our systems, people within our system were part of what mucked it up. Our money, our tax money went to muck it up with USAID and other things. So we have a certain responsibility to clean up our campsite. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Absolutely. And actually, Juan, I do have one question for you before you skedaddle.
I mean, I left something unanswered? After all that time, I didn't say everything that could be said.
Well, I think you covered the election pretty good, but this is actually going back to the bonds. So thank you to Faith and Freedom for dropping the $5 Rumble rant. It says, for Juan, can schools spend the interest from bonds freely without being restricted like the bond itself?
Well, again, different states, different rules, laws, things like that. Even in specific bond measures, there may be some things that are there. But part of our contention is that the way the bonds have been being written violates oftentimes county or state law. And we've identified a lot of that. So there's one of the things that's happened, and it goes to this specific question. I'm trying to be direct on it because they have a pretty good question. One of the things that's happened is they would issue a bond at a percentage, a certain interest rate, and it was high. The bond might be literally 10 or 12% real money. Then the companies that were managing the bonds for, say, a school district would shop it, find a lower interest rate from a different bank. But because the voters had signed off on a ballot measure through election fraud, by the way, oftentimes, because the ballot wasn't honest in what it said or how it was written, or the vote wasn't what it was. They weren't just stealing politician offices with votes. They were stealing on bond measures and saying stuff passed when it didn't. But it was approved with certain interest rate numbers. Now, the school district or the county could shop it if they found a better rate than what was voted, instead of giving it back to the voters, which they really technically legally have to. They would take the spread as found money and spend it within the school district. Oftentimes, it didn't go to help the students. It went for the retirement funds for the teachers, for things that, were totally wrong, raising teacher salaries or for school lunches that they can't do for illegals, things like that. So those are the things that are under scrutiny and are legal. Now, I can tell you that within the guys that I've dealt with, I've had them do it over and over. I've been very relentless about this. We've had them file whistleblower complaints, besides the lawsuits that are coming into play right now, and where they can recover up to a third of the damages. Most of the guys doing that, they just want to give it back to the taxpayers. They don't want ripped off money. If they got some legal fees or whatever for doing it, they'll take that, maybe keep a little extra for themselves. I'm not going to complain about it. But they actually honestly do feel very sincerely that they're there trying to save people's homes. These schools, in Colorado, it's similar to other states, Texas too, and California. Colorado, property taxes have doubled in the last 3 years. You have people all over the place having to sell their houses, especially people on fixed income. Did their fixed income double? No. So how can they afford to pay more? It's a bigger and bigger bite out of their fixed income. And so property taxes doubled in 3 years. Yes, it's because of the interest stuff. A lot of the school bond stuff was done where they didn't have to pay even the interest on the bond or the principal until the balloon hit at some later date. This is some of the stuff in California. And by the way, some of the stuff that we had in the bond conference and also at the fraud fighters conference, numerous school districts, but one just stands out glaringly. Poorest county in California, as far as overall income of the residents. Certain point here, like 20 years ago, they wanted to build a new gymnasium. The old gymnasium was, dangerous. Water coming through the roof on the basketball court, all sorts of drops down. So they do a bond measure. It's for like $10 million to build a new gymnasium and a sports center. Then the whole thing goes through the whole process, how much they got to pay on the thing, because it's a whole process. School superintendent goes to a bond issuing company, gets an agreement with the school board. We're going to do this. They have to drop architect's plans, come up with a number, how much money are we going to need for the bond to build the center that we want to build here? They come up with a number. It was $10 million. They put it on the ballot. Don't say everything. Don't do full disclosure. And the people supposedly voted in to put this new thing in. And it's going to cost them next to nothing. When you look at what the actual cost for that gymnasium was, with compounded interest, by the time it's fully paid off, which it won't be paid off for another decade, because they've extended things beyond California and the limit how many years any bond measure could be for schools, and they bypassed it through engineering. If you were to buy a 2x4, and at the time that they built this gymnasium, the 2x4s were going for about $1.12, $1.16, right in that area for that location. Today, the cost of that gymnasium, if you were to extrapolate it out just to visualize for 2x4, you'd be paying $18 for that 2x4. When we get to the final resolution of this whole thing, the proper thing is you need to set up special education trusts. If the people in an area want to build a new gymnasium, they start funding that trust. You'll have people that are wealthy that want to help, that went to that school, think it's important to have kids in the district, that may even want to make a donation. But if you levied a tax, this is for the school trust to build this thing, and you're going to save up. If they had just saved $1.18 and then paid cash for the school, they'd have had it done in a year and a half of just regular prices within the property taxes. If they'd only gotten halfway and they just had, 59 cents, then what they could have done is they could have gone to the bank. Hey, we've got half down. We want to continue to collect our taxes from the property owners, but we want to start building on this because it's an emergency. We've got to have a new school gymnasium. They could have got a construction loan for the remaining half, continued to build the building, and when the building would be under construction, they're still continuing to take in taxes. They might have had enough. Maybe they only needed the bank for a guarantee to pay off the balance. If it took them 2 extra years to pay off the balance, you're just paying common interest rates. At the time, interest rates were down there like 6-7%. They could have got that when you got half down, and you'd had it paid off and over with. These bonds are for the law firms that create them, for the payoffs to all the administrators and other people involved, for the bond issuing companies. It's a field day. They got to write up the bond. They got to go to the voters. They got to run a campaign to get the bond finance agreement with the voters to approve it on the vote. Attorneys have to write all that stuff up. The bond issuing company has to take it after the voters approve it, put it together correctly, put it on Wall Street. They're supposed to be doing reporting. By the way, one of the most important things in the bonds, nobody, and I mean nobody, is properly reporting to the SEC, following the SEC rules, about how the bonds are being paid off, where they're at on the scheduling and things like that. And I will add, when I first became aware of the bond issues, after the stuff I did, taking down, the ruble, and being involved in some of the banking stuff and like that. When I was in Arkansas on the Whitewater stuff, the bond stuff became a very big deal. The largest bond company in the world outside of Wall Street was in Little Rock, Arkansas, Peterson Investments. And the law firm that was doing most of the work related to these bonds, Arkansas and other states, was the Rose Law Firm. 95% of the business of Rose Law Firm was creating bonds to be put on the markets. and including bonds for development bonds for various projects within the state to create jobs. That's how they were money laundering all the drug money out of South America, and CIA was involved through Arkansas. And the only person that had signing authority for any of the bond projects was the governor of the state. He had sole signing responsibility to put state on the line to guarantee that the bonds would be paid back that were put on the stock market. Why do you got to control the governorship? Because that's the guy that makes it happen for the money laundering. So at the end of the day, we've had bond stuff way before. It was surprising to me to see that this was how it got bigger and bigger and went out across the country. When we were doing it in Little Rock, there was only 12 states that were doing development finance bonds for stuff in the state. Now it's all over the country. And by the way, these small banks that are most at risk, there's about 600 of them. Many of them have in their name Development Finance Bank. And what they're doing is they're churning these bonds and helping to come up with the spread that gives you the extra interest income to go back and pay off within the school district. And it never goes for buildings or infrastructure. These bonds are specifically only supposed to go to tangible infrastructure, not to salaries, not to school lunches, only to physical infrastructure because it's a property bond. So there's all sorts going on there. Lots of drama ahead. And that's why I say, yeah, it's a racket. And that's why I say you have to get out of the way of what's going to happen, even to help stabilize this with the FDIC stuff, the currency printing, et cetera, the Federal Reserve operations, going to something tangible, silver or gold, or something tangible that's useful to you otherwise. Oh, a puppy just showed up with the ball. You want me to throw that? Oh, gosh. Okay. No, just wanted to visit. Anyway, walked over, heard the conversation, but wouldn't give me the ball to throw. Anyway, I get teased all the time. I was teased a lot as a kid. Jennifer teases me. Oh, here's your cookie. Let me put it in the safe. The one that I don't have the
cookies.
I'm going to put a hidden camera where I can see what the numbers are when she dials in that safe.
Anyway, there you go. You got a tracker. Juan, really quick here. I just wanted to just to read this one because it actually two of these not affect you, but mention you.
Affect me? Oh no,
they don't affect you. Mr. Matt Nertzer on YouTube dropped a $5 super chat. Says thanks, Spaceshot, Juan, mods, and chat. So thanks to all of you. And then this one, Truth Seekers, and thank you for that, Matt Nertzer. And Truth Seekers TV dropped a $5 Rumble rant and said 71 countries. Mirror image 17 tell Juanito Becchio from Aussie land is having Juanito withdrawals. Great chat, guys. See you soon, Juanito.
Well, and by the way, we have Dominion vote systems in the U.S. and other countries around the world. In South Korea, the machine used in their vote systems there is called Miru, but they pronounce it mirror. So it's MIRU. So it's the mirror system, okay? And that's used all over the world, and that's part of the, that's the equivalent of the Dominion system and some of the other ones here in the U.S. By the way, the current president of South Korea, Lee, is the functional duplicate of Biden. Put there all the frauds and everything in the election. They're very aware of it. Let me just add this last little thing about South Korea. I've mentioned on a couple other shows, but your listeners may not be aware of this. On June 3rd, they had an election. If you remember here in America, what happened in Arizona and other states, we were all being ramped up and in defense of Charlie Kirk and the other folks. This is the context why they were saying what they were saying about early voting. So I understand where they were coming from, but we were told coming into the midterms that we needed to, and also back in the 2020 race, that the elections were going to be stolen in the early vote, which is true. And they get the numbers so they can manipulate the numbers in the machines and the total count. So it softens the end number they have. Have to modify to steal the election. So early voting is an important tool within the election theft framework. So to stop that within the conservative ranks, within the Republican ranks, we were rallied around the idea, okay, we need, and I helped push this. I mean, I was right there too, it's still correct, to only vote on election day, same day vote. It would be much harder for them to use the algorithms to cook the vote in any of the races. So when people showed up on election day, two things happened. Number one, their ballots were the wrong size to fit in the tabulating machines. So they couldn't be counted, and it jammed up the machines. It slowed down the vote. In other places, they ran out of ballots. Well, in South Korea, they had the same thing. The conservative areas, and that was the same thing with Arizona, was the conservative precincts that ran into the most problems. Somebody stepped on the poor puppy's tail. It made a little big noise if you heard that. But they didn't have ballots that actually fit the machines. The paper wasn't even correct. And then the other thing was they didn't have enough ballots. So in all these conservative voting areas where people were trying to go to vote on election day, they couldn't vote. Let me step outside. They couldn't vote. There wasn't enough ballots. So they were crying bloody murder that they couldn't vote, and it wasn't right. And they wanted to have their ballots. So before even the election day was over, they closed the election centers in these conservative locations. People weren't able to vote. That pissed people off, and they moved these votes to a central location, and then they're going to move them to the National Election Center to be counted or whatever. But they supposedly already counted them, and the number they gave in their little secret count was 2.3 million or something. When they were going to move them, they would be gone forever. Voters who hadn't been able to vote started blocking the exits. And this is at the Olympic Stadium in Seoul, where we had the Olympics several years ago. The Olympic Stadium there, people started blocking the exits. There's 8. And it was spontaneous. There was no group led it. There was no organization. There was no permit. There was nothing. People just were mad they weren't getting able to vote. And so they kind of ran for the exits. A couple of instigators kind of had the idea, we just block them so they can't get out. They call friends on their cell phones. They rally different people. Pretty soon, you got 100,000 people surrounding the stadium. Don't let these votes go, because they're going to show, if we get in there and count them, we're going to see that they're fraudulent ballots, the papers, fraudulent, blah, blah, blah. And if they take and let them move it over to the National Election Center, they'll just, lie about what's going on there, fraud the whole thing, and we'll never get an honest count. So we need to see these ballots, have them counted independently so that we know what's really going on. Well, as fate would have it, they've been there now since June 3rd. And the crowds, by the way, they were chanting, one day, paper ballot, counted where cast, end the fraud. Yeah. They started on June 3rd. From June 3rd till today, that chant hasn't ceased. They haven't stopped. There hasn't been an hour go by. While we were there the other day, I was there with Prime Minister Hong, who is probably the most respected politician in South Korea, literally. Just a super guy. He was actually the interim president when Yoon was taken out. the people have spontaneously been staying there. They have crowds. It might get down to 1,000 in the early morning hours, but by afternoon it's back up to several thousand. Sometimes at night, I was there the other night. I thought there was probably about 10,000 there, and being conservative, it's probably 6 or 7. I think it was closer to 10. I was kind of counting, went there, and it was 10 at night. The people are very wound up. They want an honest election. They get what the problem is. They get the AWEB thing. AWEB was in charge of cooking the vote in Congo, which I've been doing quite a bit of work related to that with President Tikasheti, and 3 times he wanted to come over and talk to Trump, and all 3 times there was attempts on his life, his family's life. There was a coup that they tried, so we haven't been over and talk to the president. But AWEB is behind the false vote. Why? Because China wants the minerals in the Congo. Right now in Zambia, this moment, AWEB is involved in stealing the vote and helping to overthrow the government in Zambia this second. Why? Because China wants all the minerals there in Zambia. So it's a very serious situation. And, even the people that are in power there in South Korea, the president was in trial for serious crimes, even supporting North Korea with money. And once he was elected in as the president, then he couldn't be, the trial couldn't continue, but he was going to go to jail for years. How did the election get won? Well, the people all sit there and say that Yoon didn't win the election. Okay, Lee didn't win the election. Yoon was taken out of power in a fraud with China controlling the media there in South Korea. It's a big deal. So South Korea right now is the front lines on election in the world. It's the most important location, even beyond the United States in some ways, until we get our stuff under control. China's using that as the lily pad into the rest of the world. And South Korea is important to China for a bunch of reasons. Even right now, most people aren't aware of it, but China sees the North Sea Passage as its long-term point of control. And that once you have regular traffic, heavy traffic through that North Sea Passage, even the ice threat will be minimized greatly, and they can do stuff with icebreakers to keep it open year-round. A role that Russia's doing primarily right now. That's why Greenland's also so important, by the way. And so Korea is in that whole operation, that transit. So they see a united Korea, North and South, and then bringing supplies to South Korea and doing the shipping out of South Korea through the North Passage, which is 20 days to Europe in this Silk Road mentality, as opposed to 40 to 50 days other routes. And so, just so everybody knows. And the Strait of Hormuz thing costs about 10 days more with those problems there for shippers to go around that. So there you go.
Heck yeah. All right, now, Mr. Juanito, I'm going to show you something really quick, and then I gotta kind of skedaddle, kind of on a expedited measure. But I know you'll like. Actually, where is this? Did I put these up? Okay, no, I knew I had them somewhere. I'll show you what showed up here for me. Here's the backside first. Ooh, I'm showing you the backside first. Bing.
Yes.
And you know what the other side looks like? Your face.
Yeah.
And I say that tongue in cheek. Please don't start this crap up again with Mr. Juanito. But
every time I did a show with Robert David Steele, the first seconds of the show were, and not Junior. Okay, there's a reason why this is there, and it was nothing I had anything to do starting.
Jennifer.
Right, out. Well, it started long before her, actually. But anyway, the short version is we're in a world war here. you got to be careful with where your money is, and if you can back it up with some silver, it doesn't have to be mine or something like that. Those ours will be pretty collectible down the road, but you can go over to Jennifer's site at thejennifermac.com.
Yep, and all those links are in all my description boxes too, so you guys can find those there very, very easily. But dude, it's never going to be, I've said this repeatedly, it's never going to be less than the dollar, and it's always going to, I think we're in a little bit of a lull right now, and I would tell anybody to, and I'm not a financial advisor, of course, but hey, what do I know? I was telling people to buy silver and gold, mind you, when it was literally $17, $18 and $17, $1800 for gold, silver and gold respectively. So anybody purchased back then, you guys would be thanking me today, that's for sure. But
well, I called people to buy silver at the absolute low when we started putting it on, and we've gone up ever since. Of course, we had this burp up where they wanted to try and screw things up, but we'll talk silver more in depth next time we talk. But you're in a very solid position if you're holding the silver right now. So, by the way, I didn't really talk about it, but for those that are still here, if you have any way to get to our Storm Summit, September 10th to the 13th there in Vegas, you should really be there. We're pretty cost effective. We provide the meals and stuff like that. So, it's
they all sell out pretty quick too, no?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you cannot imagine the quality of speakers we have there. James O'Keefe is going to come rock the world with what he has that he wants to present there. I've got Sean Taylor and Mark Fincham coming over. What they're going to present there, oh my gosh, on campaign finance stuff, they're killing it. We've got Roseanne Barr showing the first 2 episodes of her new TV series.
Awesome.
Oh my God, where are you going to get that? A world premiere. We're showing Dark Horse again, the only 2 times that it's been shown in a world premiere, the Fraud Fighter Summit and this one. And people coming up from Brazil and over from, I got the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister of South Korea and his entourage and some of the top attorney people like that coming over from South Korea.
Wow.
To be present here for this. I'm just touching a couple. We got several more. Mitch Fexner, he'll be there presenting. He just got his case, Supreme Court's going to hear it. Got Lloyd Brunson there. There's, I hope to have it for fraud fighters, but we have something there that should be.
That Bannon earlier too, right?
Steve Bannon. My gosh, Steve Bannon. These guys aren't coming as a 15-minute presentation or whatever. These are quality guys. And we do stuff a little different. Our guys kind of tend to stay out with the audience. They enjoy it. So it's a different experience. We even eat our meals together so we can enjoy each other's company. So you don't have to go find a place to eat and leave during the breaks for the most part. So, it's like a Trump rally. The very best part of a Trump rally is hanging out with other like-minded people, just enjoying their company. All the way up to when Trump comes out and does what he does. These type of events, we hang out together. We're not sitting, shoulder to shoulder in these seats. We have tables. You're sitting at a table desk. You bring your food over, enjoy the company of the people. It's a whole different environment. And the Ahern Hotel literally ripped this huge bar area out of the middle of the main floor. Don Ahern, I talked to him about it. He agreed to go ahead and do it. They talked about it for a while, hadn't done it. But for this event, tore that out. And then, I have a huge LED screen that I bought for the last one because we were showing Dark Horse, world class, first class, best in the world. And it's like, 22 feet wide, 17 feet tall. So we're showing, Roseanne's on that. We're showing the Dark Horse on that, which is Jim Caviezel's new movie about Bolsonaro in Brazil and the election fraud there. Everybody that saw it before just loved it. And by the way, a bunch of the Hollywood people are going to be here at this one also because they want to do a movie on the situation in South Korea. And I've got people over, talking turkey on that. So who knows what'll come from that. But this is one of those world-class events, and we're so cheap to be able to go. Most of these other events, they're good $1 trillion or something.
Now, Juan, is that the same link as because I have your link in the description box from the last show? That was the fraudfightersummit.us. Do you have a different link for this one?
It's the Storm Summit, and I'll send you a link.
The Storm Summit. SUMMIT. I think it's .com.org. Let me see. See if I can find it. Did I lose him, or is he muted? Maybe. Let me see. See if I can find a link here quick.
There we go. I bumped something. Who knows?
Okay.
Anyway, sorry about that. No, it's if you go to unauthorized, which is our 501c4. If you go to unauthorized .1 and spell the letter 1 ONE,
okay,
it takes you to our front page on the website, and then you'll see events, kind of upper right center. Punch that, and it shows, Storm Summit. Of course, Fraud Fighters is done, so now it's the Storm. And on the Storm Summit, the pricing is $700 a ticket, but because we worked a deal with Biden the other day, if you punch in War Room, you get it for $600. So
this is how many days is this?
Well, it's 3 days. The last one I did, the Fraud Fighters, was 2 days. So this is 3 days. And you don't want to miss Thursday night. I don't think I'll be presenting the opening thing Thursday night. I think it's kind of an important one. But the Friday is 9/11. I got Tina Peters there. Her birthday is on 9/11, by the way.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah, so she'll be there. I mean, you won't find a more amazing group than we have for speakers and presenters there. I don't think at any other conference in the country anytime soon. And it's just a different atmosphere. We don't, one thing too, we don't do these things where we have if you spend an extra 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000, you get to go get your whatever signed by some celebrity or whatever. It doesn't feel right to me. I get it. Other people do it. That's fine. But, our folks tend to hang and talk with and meet with people through the conference, and we're not having 10,000 people there. So, you've got, probably well under 1,000. And we don't know what the number will be. Last one we had 700 plus the other people were a total about 800. I think we've had, and so it's actually a fairly reasonable crowd. You get to hang. It's a nice big spot. It's going to be even bigger now that they've torn out that stage at the center, and then we've moved the TV from the opposite side for everybody who was there and saw the LED screen. So now on the opposite side of the room, so there isn't a bad seat in the house. It's amazing. So, and that my chief of staff was walking through today, and I'll probably walk through next week one day on the sound stuff too. We had to buy sound stuff for the situation. We weren't happy with the sound on the last one. We're going to try and improve it. So
that's September 10th or 11th. Sorry, brother. That was 11th or 10th?
10th through the 13th. So the 10th, I'll be presenting that evening. It starts in the evening. So people have a travel day. They don't have to, they can travel to get there, be there for the evening operations. That'll be fantastic all day Friday. And then we're showing Roseanne stuff Friday night, theater type setting. The other thing, I haven't even talked about crap. There's so much going on. I didn't even tell your audience. You know what else we got coming? Oh my gosh. I have Kurt Weldon, former House member, who was on deck after 9/11 to become head of the Armed Services Committee. We are going to disclose stuff about 9/11 that has never been heard publicly before.
Yeah, he's a good
Okay.
whistleblower too.
And who was behind it has never been heard publicly before. You're going to hear names of Americans, and it's going to piss you the hell off. But more importantly, we're dealing with 9/11 issues. I have the Able Danger team that was tracking the whole bin Laden thing and the ruses around it before 9/11. They're going to be there presenting. Think about that. When was the last time anybody in any public setting that you know about has had any speakers come in and try to address 9/11 for real in the last at least 5 years, more likely 10 years plus? It's like everybody will forget about it. Let me just say one thing that everybody in this audience must think about. Homeland Security and the Patriot Act were created in the wake of 9/11. Homeland Security took all of the independent intelligence investigative agencies and put them under one roof, centralized them so that they could be controlled more readily by SES, by the way, Senior Executive Service. So what happened was we lost an enemy, didn't have to go out and infiltrate all these agencies independently. They just had to infiltrate at the top, right there in one thing at Homeland Security, and made it easier. 9/11 created the pathway for the 2020 election steal. Without 9/11, you would not have been able to steal the 2020 election or all the other elections. Think about that. Not possible. Never would have happened. You would not have election fraud without 9/11. It was all part of a plan from the beginning with the objective to take over not just the United States, but the world. We will present stuff related to that at the event. Where else are you going to get that? And by the way, for people that can't come, we're going to live stream the whole thing out for free. We're not charging anything. And glad to do it. But if you can come, I think you'll get an experience that, you won't get anywhere else. And we're cheap. We're providing meals, $600, providing meals if you punch in War Room. It's $700, but if you punch in War Room, you get the discount. And there's hotels. If you look down the page a little bit, there's hotels where you can get a discount. The Ahern is sold out. Stratosphere is the least expensive. The Sahara is a little more expensive, and they're all upgraded and renovated and all that. It's actually, everybody that stayed there said it was fantastic. You're not going to be at the hotel very much. Stay at the Stratosphere and save $1. It's just fine. It's only 800 feet walking, 3 football fields away. The Trump has got rooms still available. Talked to him again today, and they've held out a fairly nice block for us. I think we got another week and a half before that block goes away. So if you want to go and get the discounted prices, you got to sign up before that hold gets lifted. So anyway, and I asked you, I told you, come on out. What in the world is going on? I'll give you a cookie.
Well,
figure out the combination of the safe. I'll give you a cookie.
I will commit to this, brother. I will commit to the beginning of next year. I'll start getting out there.
All right.
For sure. I'm just trying to get a little normalcy back here from my boy. But other than that, I'll be definitely getting out. And believe me, if I was getting out, I would be there with. I'd be wearing bells. Literally, I would have bells on. Ding, ding, ding.
It's going to be an epic experience for everybody that shows up, I think. So I'm kind of selling a little bit, but I don't think I'm wrong to, because you're not going to. This is a great deal. This is a lot of fun. Great people. You're not going to get to hang with other patriots. The White House kind of acknowledged to us here a month and a half or so back, looking at all the various events going on around the country, patriot events on. We're the last one up. We're the last one up before this midterm election of any significance. And with all these power players in here, my gosh, Kurt Weldon, by the way, his book on 9/11 is releasing on 9/11. And so this is his, first time out speaking in the conjunction of that, with a lot of that put together with Able Danger team members like that. So you're going to get an experience that nobody else is going to be able to do, and probably won't be duplicated for quite a while, because I don't think we're, the country's going to go on. We're going to be fine. So we can go on restaurants, flying on airplanes, everything else after the pause in the election. France government closed down the whole government like 4 times in the last 25 years. And the people were like, oh my gosh, I wish they'd shut down again, because things went so well when they weren't, bucking things up. We're going to go on, but this is going to be a little different environment for a while. We'll be so focused on Gitmo, the arrest, some of the other things that, and there is going to be some unrest, civil unrest. It won't last long. Wherever it starts, it will reduce down to 14 cities is what we project. And they'll self-centralize where they think they got cover. That won't last long. So we're turning a page here in the country and the world that's critical. Getting a chance to hang together in that one moment for that last, big surge here with a pause, something that we've been working towards for over a decade. My whole life, I've been waiting for this moment, working towards this moment. I think of all the guys that I have worked with and known, they're all gone for the most part now, and timed out, but that would have dreamed to get here, be here, and see what's happening and about to happen. We're doing it for them. So you need to savor this moment, enjoy it, and if you get a chance to come join us and enjoy it together, all the better.
Exactly. Yeah. Enjoy the ride. Don't stop waiting for the the destination to arrive. Everybody's like, why aren't we there yet? I'm like, I'm enjoying the hell out of this ride. So I think, like you said, savor it, brother.
In Disneyland, when I was a kid, you go to Disneyland, and the big kids, they were old enough to get to buy an e-ticket, which was really fun rides that were really like scary and did something, right? When you're a kid, you drive the car that you don't actually get to drive. You turn the steering wheel and it's on a rail. Okay, this isn't any fun. I want to, yeah, okay, I'm bored. Hello, duh. When can I get the ticket? Well, you have to be this tall. Okay.
Exactly.
I was just talking to a waitress the other day. She's like 4'9". She's born in a small family. She says, I never ever got to the right height.
I never got to get onto the big rides. Oh, dude, This is a blast.
I'm 35 and I still can't get on the big rides. Where do I protest?
Gonna start shrinking soon, so it definitely ain't gonna happen. But dude, God, we need to definitely not make it so long in between, brother. And as I mentioned in our correspondence via text, my boy will be going back to school in a couple of weeks, and once he does, I will be rocking and rolling. So I'll be much more open to jump on at any point you feel like you got to get something out quick. I'm your man. And from what I hear, I'm one of the guys that lets you talk and doesn't interrupt you all the time. That's just what I hear.
You're a gentleman. By the way, you guys might want to live stream the summit. We'd be glad to let you do that. We're, charge.
Yeah, I absolutely would. Yeah, I was going to ask about the last one, but I'm like, I don't want to, infringe
on
that.
No. I want you there. For people that can't go look at it, it's expensive. Go across the country. You have mostly an Eastern audience. I think you're going to see stuff. Every speaker is going to be epic, but they'll also be recorded. They'll be available out there and like that. But it's fun sometimes to see it live. Love to have you guys do it. We can't show the movies live.
Gotcha.
But what Roseanne has on, you should probably show up too, because we give away free popcorn. So we don't even charge for the popcorn. Where do you go to a movie? They don't even charge for the popcorn. Come on, man.
No, man. Yeah, dude, I will absolutely stream that and, everything I can. And of course, you guys will block the movie. But I will stream everything else I can out there. And dude, I appreciate you coming on, brother. I'm just going to do some thank yous when you go hang out with your beautiful new bride there and tell Jennifer I said hello. And we'll definitely
not telling her hello. I'm telling her, give me the safe. number.
Give me the cookies.
Combination. I want that cookie. I just finished a long show with Space Shot. I deserve a cookie.
I get my cookie now. she's got a box
Then I'll
of cookies.
tell her hi for Space Shot. Give me my cookie.
She's over there shanking them. Here you go. You get them.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, brother, though. I really do.
All
and
right.
You have yourself a great rest of your weekend, or a great start of your rest of your weekend there. And we will talk very soon, I believe.
Thanks, Space Shot.
Thanks, brother.
There's the cookie holder right there. All right.
Later, brother. Always a blast to have Mr. Juanito on there with us. Always enjoy his perspective on things, and I don't like to interrupt him as he's going. So I do have to do some thank yous, and then I told Tron I would raid him about an hour ago, but time does get away from us. But always have a very enjoyable time there talking with Mr. Juanito. If you guys would indulge me in about another minute, I could blast through this thing really quick, and then I'm going to do some thank yous and get you guys right over to Mr. Tron for some fun stuff over there as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your own money, and after the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you're in control. And if you ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt that problem too. Now fast forward to today. Everybody's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. And that's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all that complexity and makes it simple. You can choose what you want: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. There's no complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. And once you are set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you are in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. All right there, ladies and gentlemen. I know I did thank a few people already from today, and I want to make sure I do not miss any there. Mr. MacGyver did come in with a $2 super chat on YouTube, who bids us either good afternoon or good evening, and in this case, good evening, Patriots, and good evening right back to you there, Mr. MacGyver. I did get to that one. Big Time 17 Ounce dropped a $2 super chat and says, the best of times, no doubt. Yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying this timeline. I am not stressed in any way, shape, or form. And it's just like every time you look at President Trump, even when it looks like he's up against it, he is like Teflon Don, right? He's like John Gotti, the Teflon Don. It just doesn't stick to him. I did thank that one earlier. Thank you to Copperhead Road Podcast, who rated me, and then the Raconteurs Report had also rated after that. And then, let's see, True Seeker, I did reach that one there. Beckio, I got you that message to Juanito. And then my brother D Starboy had also gifted out 5 subscriptions to the channel, which I do appreciate, my man. And Warrior Mima came in as well and gifted out a subscription as well to the channel. So thank you, Warrior Mima, D Starboy, Truth Seekers, Raconteurs Report, Copperhead Road Podcast, Matt Netzer, Big Time 17 Ounce, Faith and Freedom, MacGyver, and then PJW for the 5 gifted subs and the becoming a supporter herself. And then Bone Tip from earlier says, first thing I thought of first seeing that clip, he's stepping on Juan's toes. And then for Mr. Beer at the Parade for rating earlier, and then Stangino for the $50 Rumble rant where he said somebody got sent to his house. And then Major D2 firing up for gifting those subs earlier. And Debbie does keep does a great job of keeping me informed of the gifted subs over there. I do get notifications of the Rumble rants and the super chats, but the gifted memberships I do not get. So she does a great job in passing that information over. So thank you there, Mr. MacGyver, who sent at least 1-2 months membership there. And then thank you for that, Debbie. She grabbed me the link for Mr. Tron's Keeping It Wheel show, which always a blast over there. And then I think I am all caught up. Let me just make sure here. General Matt Netzer, I did get that one, and I did get the gifted ones there. I always want to make sure I never forget those guys because I do really appreciate that, and I don't want to ever miss thanking somebody that does gift something. So I will be back with Mr. Hulkinator tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope you guys can join me. And then I will also be live at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday with Mr. Matrix Codebreaker. And as somebody in the chat mentioned a little earlier, President Trump is kind of going off on True Social here, talking about the treasonists and brought the suit against the military complex. So you don't want to get into lawsuits with the military complex out there, guys. So I wanted to also, one more time today, thank all of the mods that I have written down. And I do appreciate your help greatly. Cap78 Pack, Chris Schaus, Diane DeVoe Williams, Debbie Roush, GGB Working It, James Rohrback, Patriot Chick, P Dancer, Susie Q, Tasmaniac, Tanette Booth, and that's all. I'm just kidding. I have to do this funny thing, right, Wheezy, at the end? Because I for some reason wrote them all down and left Wheezy off the list or forgot to say it the first time. But of course, Miss Wheezy Girl is in that list as well. So thank you very much for all of your help out there, mods. I do greatly appreciate it. And all of you wonderful world patriots, I do appreciate each and every last one of you guys for tuning in, guys and gals. And until that next video, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Peace. I'm going to send you guys over to Tron. Again, peace. Wait, where is it? Oh, all right. I'm going to have to add another song here. I literally put this song right here. Let me fix this right here. I need to get ultra bright. Here we go. And it's probably going to be sized a little messed up, but I put Juan's image in the place of this. So here it is.
Well, we are opposed around the world.
There you go, guys. We got it rocking and rolling. I'm going to make sure it's not too loud. I'm going to have to turn it down a little bit. Thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Peace.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means, on infiltration instead of invasion.
You have all the money in the world. You have all the power you need. What's the point? What's the end goal? They said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society.
Party in the garden, the tower's falling, love in the summertime. Ooh, yeah, yeah. In a unified, feeling oh so unified. In the lockdown, in the lockdown. I know he's your friend, but I don't care. Every day, it's a gift. That's why we call it the blessing. We were born on the garden of Earth, with the flowers growing, little birds chirping. I was in the garden just having a laugh, till I met a monster cross my path. Hey, Gather, do you want some more trilla? I could get you lit up one of two ways. What's it gonna be, man? What's it gonna be, man? Said I felt like the whole world was begging me to rain fire above upon my enemies, till the love washed over me, till I let the love wash over me. Said I forgot the whole world begging me to rain fire above upon my enemies, till the love washed over me, till I let the love wash over me every day. It's a gift, that's why we call it the blessing. Every
is a gift